Chapter 37:27. Let them go. I will talk to Morong Fugue. Zhuowen said coldly. His sword met with Zhuowen's cold eyes, and his body trembled. However, he did not dare to disobey Zhuowen and quickly released Pharmacist Lu and Lu Miaozhen. Zhuowen, you will offend Morong Fugue. This is not a wise decision. Apothecary Lu looked deeply at Zhuowen and sighed. Zhuowen smiled and said, Pharmacist Lu, Miss Miaozhen, my life was saved by the both of you. When you are in trouble, how can I just sit back and do nothing? Don't worry, as long as you are by my side. Morong Fugue will not be able to do anything to you. Pharmacist Lu and Lu Miaozhen looked at each other and smiled bitterly. They took Zhuowen's words as comforting words. Zhuowen led the group to the main hall. Outside the hall, Fan Shuang was waiting. Master Zhuo, you are finally back. Fan Shuang quickly went forward and bowed. Her beautiful eyes were filled with excitement. After Morong Fugue had captured Lu Yichuan, he had come to Gujian Villa again. He had said that he would only leave after the Grand Lord's mansion had captured Lu Yichuan. Moreover, Morong Fugue had given them a deadline of 3 days. If they could not capture Lu Miaozhen in 3 days, he would destroy Gujian Villa. Fan Shuang had been standing by his side, not daring to leave the main hall. She had been on tenterhooks, afraid that Morong Fugue would really destroy the Grand Lord's mansion. Now that Zhuowen had returned, she suddenly had a pillar of support. How could she not be excited? Fan Shuang, where is Morong Fugue? Zhuowen asked in a low voice. Fan Shuang pointed at the main hall and said, Master Zhuo, Morong Fugue, and the rest are in the main hall. They are from the Morong family. Master Zhuo, you must be more polite. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and did not answer Fan Shuang. Instead, he stepped into the main hall. The main hall was very spacious, and there were rows of tall wooden pillars on both sides. At the front of the main hall, a young man with a pale face sat on the main seat. 2 beautiful concubines were nestled on the young man's body. Sitting next to the main seat was a man in a black robe. His head was covered with a hood, so Zhuowen couldn't see the man's face clearly. Master Zhuo, he is Morong Fugue, the black-robed man. Sitting beside him is his subordinate. His name is Deqi. He's very powerful. He's at the pinnacle of the Heaven Ascension Change realm. Fan Shuang whispered to Zhuowen. Morong Fugue slowly raised his head and looked at Zhuowen. After discovering that the latter was only at the peak of the divine fetal transformation realm, a disdainful smile appeared on his face. Are you the new Lord of Yunjin Hill? Wasn't his cultivation a little too weak? What was wrong with the previous Lord? Why would they let you become the new Lord? Morong Fugue said, rather casually. I killed the previous feudal Lord, so I can become the current feudal Lord. Zhuowen said calmly. Morong Fugue was stunned. He didn't think that Zhuowen would dare to refute him. However, Morong Fugue didn't care about Zhuowen's attitude. Instead, his gaze fell on Lu Miaozhen, who was behind Zhuowen. The smile on his face grew wider. The efficiency of the Overlord's residence is quite high. It's only been a few hours, and you've already caught the person I want. Tie this woman up and hand her to me. Morong Fugue pointed at Lu Miaozhen and said calmly. Lu Miaozhen's pretty face changed slightly. She quickly shrank behind Master Lu, her delicate body trembling. Morong Fugue, although you're from the Morong family, you still need a reason to capture someone, right? My granddaughter has no grudge against you. Why do you have to capture her? Master Lu said, rather angrily. Morong Fugue sneered and said, Do I, Morong Fugue, need a reason to capture someone? It's her honor that I want to capture her. You old fart, you've been obstructing me. Then I'll kill you first. As he spoke, Morong Fugue flicked his finger with his right hand. A sharp, invisible needle-shaped chi quickly swept towards Master Lu's forehead. This chi was too fast. Master Lu didn't even have time to react. Just as the energy was about to enter Apothecary Lu's glabella, Zhuowen grabbed it in his hand and crushed it. Zhuowen, thank you. Master Lu was so shocked that he broke out in cold sweat. He could clearly feel that if the chi really entered his forehead, he would be dead for sure. Morong Fugue's eyes slowly narrowed and fell on Zhuowen. You've got guts. You actually dared to save the person I want to kill. Do you think that just because you're the overlord of Yunjin Hill, you're the ruler here? I can tell you that you're just a frog at the bottom of a well. If I, Morong Fugue, want to tear down Yunjin Hill, it's only a matter of a sentence. Morong Fugue slowly stood up and continued. Now I'll give you a chance. Kneel in front of me, kowtow 100 times, and break one of your arms. Then I'll give you a chance to live. The two beauties beside Morong Fugue looked at Zhuowen with ridicule in their eyes and laughed mockingly. They knew Morong Fugue's temper very well. They knew that Yunjin Hill Overlord was really playing with fire. He actually dared to block Morong Fugue's attack. Wasn't he courting death? The black-robed man looked at Zhuowen indifferently and sneered. He still didn't say a word. In his opinion, Yunjin Hill Overlord was really ignorant. He actually dared to save someone in front of young Master Morong. This was blasphemy against young Master Morong's authority. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed dangerously. He said coldly, "You're sitting on my seat and you're still showing off in front of me. Who gave you the guts?" Morong Fugue was stunned. The beauties beside him were also dumbfounded. The black-robed man's body stiffened. Fan Shuang and the others were even more worried. No one expected that not only was Zhuowen not afraid of Morong Fugue, but he even dared to challenge him. "You are really courting death." Morong Fugue's face was terrifyingly gloomy. He was only halfway through his words when his expression changed drastically. A strong wind swept over, and his body was involuntarily thrown forward. Bang! Morong Fugue fell heavily to the ground, while his two beauties cried out in alarm and fell to the sides. Morong Fugue struggled to stand up. He was shocked to find that Zhuowen had unknowingly sat on the main seat. "I'm the overlord of Yunjin Hill. This is my position, in my territory. Even if you're a dragon, you'll have to coil up. Even if you're a tiger, you'll have to lie down. A strong dragon can't suppress a local snake. You came to my territory and yelled at me. Do you really think that a local snake like me is easy to bully?" Zhuowen sat on the main seat. His voice was as cold as a knife, but every word was like a gem. "No way." Lord Zhuo, Fan Shuang, and the 10 swordsmen's faces turned incomparably pale. They didn't expect Zhuowen's attitude to be so unyielding. He didn't give Morong Fugue any face at all. "How dare you?" Morong Fugue was mad with anger. He stood up again and rushed towards Zhuowen like a madman. The aura of the fetal god transformation surged out without any concealment. At the same time, Morong Fugue took out a blood spear from his spirit ring and threw it at Zhuowen. He followed behind the blood spear like a beast, ready to launch a thunderous attack at Zhuowen at any time. The black-robed man originally wanted to stand up and attack Zhuowen, but when he saw Morong Fugue use the blood spear, his expression changed slightly and his body involuntarily retreated a little. Chapter 37:28. Zhuowen was still sitting on the main seat when Blood Spear was about to reach his forehead. A golden light burst out from between his brows, and a soul sword intent suddenly swept out and slashed at Blood Spear. Bang! A powerful force exploded, and Blood Spear was sent flying upwards. The powerful force spread out, and the entire roof of the main hall was completely shattered. "What? This guy, Morong Fugue, who was originally following behind Bloodspear and ready to attack at any time, was stunned when he saw Bloodspear being sent flying. However, his body fell into joie when sighed due to inertia. Juon was expressionless as he directly punched Murongfuge in the face. Bang! A terrifying force spread out like ripples. Murongfuge's right face was directly smashed out of shape. His facial bones were shattered, and he smashed into the ground under Zhuowen's feet. Fan Shuang and the 10 swordsmen were stunned to find that Murongfuge's head was directly stuffed into the ground, leaving only his body outside. Zhuowen was still sitting on the main seat, and his right foot was unceremoniously stepping on Murongfuge's back. Murongfuge, who had been constantly struggling, was directly trampled to the ground by this foot. His head on the ground let out a whimper. Young master. When the two beauties saw Murongfuge's head fall to the ground, they both cried out in shock and anger. The black-robed man roared and was about to rush towards Zhuowen. Do you want your young master to die? Zhuowen saw that the black-robed man was about to rush over and said calmly. The black-robed man, who was originally burning with anger, immediately stopped when he heard this and regained his composure. You're really bold. You know that we're from the Murong family, and you still dare to attack my young master. You're digging your own grave, the black-robed man said in a low voice. At the same time, the black-robed man looked at Zhuowen with a gaze full of fear. This person could easily send Bloodspear flying, which proved that this person's strength was around the heaven-trampling transformation. However, the black-robed man was puzzled. Why was Zhuowen's aura only at the peak of the divine fetal transformation? Most likely, he was hiding his cultivation. When Zhuowen saw the black-robed man stop, he slowly lifted Murongfuge, who was under his feet, with one hand. Murongfuge's right cheek was swollen beyond recognition. His face was distorted, and he couldn't even speak clearly. Looks like Zhuowen's punch wasn't light. When Fan Shuang and the 10 swordsmen saw Murongfuge's miserable state, their mouths couldn't help but twitch. This was a direct descendant of the Murong family. Yet Zhuowen still dared to lay his hands on him. Just how careless was he? Bastard, you... As soon as Murongfuge was mentioned, he saw Zhuowen and roared angrily. However, his words were a bit vague and unclear. Pa! As soon as Murongfuge spoke, Zhuowen directly slapped him. Murongfuge was stunned and was about to speak again, but Zhuowen gave him another backhand slap. Pa! 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 Just like that, under the dumbfounded gazes of the crowd, Zhuowen gave Murongfuge more than 10 slaps. The sound of the slaps was simply too crisp. The black-robed man clenched his fists so tightly that they made cracking sounds, but he did not dare to rush forward. After all, Murongfuge was currently in Zhuowen's hands. If he rushed forward and the latter directly killed Murongfuge, then he would have a huge responsibility. Now you can speak. Speak, what did you want to say? Zhuowen casually lifted Murongfuge up, moved closer to his face, and grinned. Murongfuge was on the verge of tears. His head was dizzy, and the pain on his face was unbearable. Zhuowen's slap was not an ordinary slap. Instead, it was based on the shattering divine force. The power of the slap was absolutely terrifying, and Murongfuge was about to be beaten to death. I was wrong. I shouldn't have sat in your main seat. Now that you've beaten me up, let me go. Murongfuge's voice was choked with sobs. Everyone in the main hall was silent. They did not expect that Murongfuge would be beaten to the point of begging for mercy. I've said it before, a strong dragon cannot suppress a local snake. Since I am the lord of Yunjin territory, then I am the rule of this territory. Even if you are from the Murong family, you have to follow my rules when you come to my territory. If it weren't for the fact that you are from the Morong family, I would have beaten you to death just now. How could I allow you to be so arrogant in front of me?" Shuowen's voice was calm, but the words he said were extremely arrogant. "Now, can you tell me why you came to my lord's mansion? As long as I, Zhuowen, can do it, I will do my best to help you." Zhuowen grinned. His smile was rather brilliant. When Morong Fugue saw Zhuowen's smile, his entire body couldn't help but tremble. He felt a chill run down his spine. This guy is too strange. His cultivation isn't high, so how can he be so powerful? "Bastard, I'm going to tear down your lord's mansion today and make you die a horrible death." The black-robed man could no longer hold back. A powerful aura burst out from his body, and a terrifying, murderous intent shot out from his eyes. When Zhuowen had beaten up Morong Fugue, he had already sentenced Zhuowen to death in his heart. "Deqi, beat him half to death for me. Remember, don't beat him to death. Capture him. I want to torture him personally. I want him to suffer a fate worse than death." Morong Fugue's eyes were filled with hatred. Although his words were not very clear, the black-robed man could still hear them clearly. Two beautiful women hurried to Morong Fugue's side, supported him, and asked about his well-being. "Oh, are you here to cause trouble?" Zhuowen's eyes were cold. He turned to Fan Shuang and the 10 swordsmen and said, "You guys go out first. The further the better." Fan Shuang, the 10 swordsmen, and the others quickly nodded and led the cultivator army out of the main hall and out of the manor. "It's over. Brother Zhuo actually beat up Morong Fugue. I'm afraid this will be difficult to resolve." Lu Miaozhen's beautiful eyes were filled with worry. Medicine Master Lu hurriedly comforted her, saying that the heavens help the worthy. However, his eyes were also filled with worry. Clearly, he didn't have much confidence in Zhuowen. Master Zhuo is too impulsive. That Deqi by Morong Fugue's side is a pinnacle heaven ascension change realm powerhouse. Even if Master Zhuo is really strong, he might not be a match for Deqi. Fan Shuang had a headache. She didn't expect Zhuowen to be so unyielding. When Zhuowen faced Lu Yichuan, she could understand his unyielding attitude. After all, Zhuowen's strength and status were above Lu Yichuan's. No matter how much trouble Lu Yichuan could cause, what trouble could he cause? However, the one who came this time was one of the 4 major families of the Ji province. This was a force far stronger than Yunjin region. Zhuowen was still so unyielding. Where did he get his confidence from? "Miss Fan Shuang, Master Zhuo is not a fool. He is doing this for the 2 of them. Morong Fugue wants to capture them, but they are Master Zhuo's old friends. With Morong Fugue's arrogant attitude, he definitely won't give Master Zhuo face and let his friends go. He might even go overboard and ask Master Zhuo to apologize. Since the 2 are bound to clash in the end, Lord Zhuo would rather choose to go against them directly than compromise." Chapter 37:29. Boom, boom, boom. After Fan Shuang and the rest retreated from the Gujin villa, they immediately felt 2 terrifying auras surging out from the villa. Then a blinding energy spread out like the sun, and the huge Gujin villa was turned into a pile of ruins. 2 figures rushed out from the ruins, and the 2 continued to fight. Terrifying energy ripples spread out. Master Zhuo is already fighting with Deqi. What a terrifying aura. Is this the power of the heaven-trampling transformation? Fan Shuang stared at the fighting figures in the ruins of the villa in shock. The 10 swordsmen's eyes were filled with excitement. They said in a low voice, "We have underestimated Master Zhuo's strength. He can fight with Deqi without being defeated. He is definitely not weaker than Deqi." Pharmacist Lu and Lu Miaozhen looked at the scene in shock. They still found it hard to believe that the young man they saved in the valley had hidden his strength so well. Dechi, what are you doing? Hurry up and cripple this guy. Morong Fugue summoned a divine ship, and it floated in midair not far from the ruins. Morong Fugue, with the help of Meiji, saw that Dechi and Zhuowen were locked in battle. He could not help but roar angrily. I did not expect you to have such strength. You are even stronger than Lu Yichuan, who has the blazing toad. But this is the end. Today, you will die here. Dechi formed a seal with his hands, and immediately 5 bolts of black lightning appeared around him. The 5 bolts of black lightning were in the shape of different divine swords. Each of the divine swords formed by the black lightning were extraordinary and terrifying. This is my strongest divine power, the 5 thunder swords. Up until now, there has never been an opponent who has survived my attack. But don't worry. Master Morong has ordered that I only need to cripple you. I won't really kill you. Dechi sneered and waved his right hand at Zhuowen. Suddenly, the 5 thunder swords split into 5 different directions and rushed toward Zhuowen. That's fast. Zhuowen's gaze was solemn. He could sense the power of the 5 divine thunder swords. Zhuowen did not hesitate to release 10 soul sword intents, barely blocking the first wave of the 5 swords of divine thunder. After the 5 swords of divine, thunder brushed past Zhuowen's body. It once again turned around and charged towards Zhuowen. The 5 swords divine, thunder, was indeed powerful. Zhuowen had released 10 divine soul sword intents, but he was only barely able to resist it. At this moment, he was also in a rather sorry state. It had to be said that Dechi was indeed powerful. Although his cultivation was only at the pinnacle of the Ascension Change realm, Zhuowen could sense that Dechi was infinitely close to the Void God transformation realm. Ha! You have some ability, but the power of my 5 swords of divine thunder will become stronger with the passage of time. How long can you last under its attack? Dechi crossed his arms and sneered. His gaze landed on Lu Miaozhen, who was outside the Gujian villa. I'll make use of this time to kill all these ants. As for that woman, I'll capture her alive and hand her over to young master. Dechi no longer paid attention to Zhuowen. In his opinion, Zhuowen would not be able to escape from the continuous attacks of the 5 swords of divine thunder. Zhuowen also noticed that Dechi was charging towards Fan Shuang and the 10 swordsmen. He immediately guessed Dechi's intention. You're courting death. Zhuowen scoffed. He no longer held back and took out the half-moon god fire spear from his great world. Back then, the half-moon god fire spear had almost dimmed when it was attacked by the terrifying giant beast in the chaotic starry sky. However, after a period of nourishment, it had completely recovered. Zhuowen held the handle of the half-moon god fire spear and swung it. Instantly, countless spear shadows accompanied by terrifying divine flames surged out. The 5 swords of divine thunder that were charging towards Zhuowen were all shattered by the spear shadows. Then, Zhuowen raised the half-moon god fire spear and threw it towards Dechi. Bang! 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 Countless explosions resounded. Wherever the half-moon god fire spear passed, the air would explode, and divine flames would fly everywhere. Just as Dechi arrived not far above Fan Shuang and the rest, he immediately heard the terrifying explosions behind him. The moment he turned around, he saw the half-moon god fire spear charging towards him. The half-moon god fire spear was too fast. In the blink of an eye, it was already in front of Dechi. There was no time for Dechi to dodge. Dechi's eyes flashed with a trace of ruthlessness. He formed a seal with both hands. Blazing black lightning gathered in front of him, forming a solid black lightning shield. Moreover, this black lightning shield had 3 inner and 3 outer layers. There was a total of 6 layers. It was Dechi's strongest defensive sacred art. Rumble! The half-moon god fire spear landed on the lightning shield and let out an ear-piercing sound. Immediately after, the lightning shield exploded layer by layer. There were a total of 6 explosions. Dechi's lightning shield was completely destroyed. What? This is impossible. Dechi's eyes widened. He let out a scream of terror. Then, he watched as the half-moon god fire spear pierced through his chest and nailed him to the ground. Wherever the spear pointed, the ground cracked. It was as terrifying as an earthquake. Not far away, Fan Shuang and the rest were all affected. When the spear landed on the ground, it swept up a huge gust of wind and blew them a few thousand meters away. With the spear as the center, a huge hole appeared. At the center of the hole, Dechi was lying on his back. His chest was pierced through by the spear. His eyes were wide open. He was actually dead. Whoosh! Zhuowen slowly landed in the hole. He placed one foot on the end of the spear and stood there like a god. Fan Shuang, the 10 sword guards, the cultivator army, and medicine master Lu were all petrified. The surroundings were terrifyingly quiet. They did not expect Zhuowen, who was originally at a disadvantage, to explode with such terrifying power in an instant, especially that spear. Its power was too terrifying. It was definitely not an ordinary spear. Morong Fugue, you want to capture me with this little bit of power? You're looking down on me. Zhuowen raised his head slightly and looked at Morong Fugue on the divine ship with a mocking smile. That's a heaven-breaking, level 4 divine weapon. On the divine ship, Morong Fugue's pupils shrunk. Then he quickly reacted and immediately drove the divine ship to escape into the distance. You can't escape. Zhuowen pulled out the half-moon god fire spear and threw it in the air again. The terrifying sound of the spear breaking through the air resounded above the main city. It was as if countless bombs were exploding one after another. All the cultivators in the main city involuntarily raised their heads to look at the sky. Rumble! The divine ship exploded. The 2 beauties on the deck did not even make a sound before they were annihilated in the sea of fire. Chapter 37:30. Cough, cough, cough. When Zhuowen arrived at the ruins, Morong Fugue was coughing up blood and had difficulty moving. He looked at Zhuowen in horror and quickly begged for mercy. Lord Zhua, don't kill me. Please let me go, and we'll forget about what happened today. Don't worry. After I return to the Morong family, I won't take revenge on you. Fan Shuang, the 10 swordsmen, and the others quickly rushed over. Fan Shuang quickly said, Lord Zhua, you can't kill Morong Fugue. He's a direct descendant of the Morong family. If you kill him, you'll really have a death feud with the Morong family. Zhuowen's eyes were calm. Even if I don't kill Morong Fugue, I've already made a huge feud with the Morong family. When Morong Fugue returns, he'll definitely find a stronger cultivator to kill me. Since we've already made a feud, I'll have to get rid of him. With that, Zhuowen cut off Morong Fugue's head and destroyed his divine soul under the horrified gazes of Fan Shuang and the 10 swordsmen. Fan Shuang and the others felt a chill in their hearts as they looked at Zhuowen's back in awe. This Zhuowen was truly fearless. He had even killed a direct descendant of the Morong family without hesitation. Zhuowen casually took off Morong Fugue's spiritual ring and scanned it with his divine telekinesis. He was surprised to find a familiar figure inside. Zhuowen's divine telekinesis moved, and a figure appeared in front of him. President Lu, what a coincidence! We meet again. The figure in the spiritual ring was Lu Yichuan, who was imprisoned by Morong Fugue. At that moment, Lu Yichuan's entire body was bound by black lightning, and he could not move his limbs at all. Why am I here? Lord Zhua, did you let me out? Where's Morong Fugue? Lu Yichuan asked in surprise. He's lying there. Zhuowen pointed at Morong Fugue's corpse. What? Morong Fugue is dead. Lord Zhua, did you kill him? Lu Yichuan's eyes were filled with shock. Morong Fugue was indeed killed by Master Zhua. That De Qi was also killed by Master Zhua. Fan Shuang smiled bitterly. She knew that this matter had really blown up. If the Morong family were to find out about it, they would probably fly into a rage. They might even implicate Yunjin Hill. Zhuowen smiled when he saw that everyone was silent. He said, I know what all of you are thinking. Don't worry when the people from the Morong family come to Yunjin to denounce us. Just say that it was me who did it. Also, from today onwards, I will pass the position of Lord of Yunjin Hill to Lu Yichuan. I am no longer the Lord of Yunjin Hill. I killed Morong Fugue for my own personal reasons. I don't think that the Morong family would be so crazy as to go against the entire Yunjin territory. As soon as these words came out, everyone was stunned. They never thought that Zhuowen would actually give up the position of feudal lord. However, none of them had any objections. Just as Zhuowen had said, if he continued to be the lord of Yunjin Hill, his identity alone would implicate the entire Yunjin Hill. Lu Yichuan's gaze was extremely complicated. He had been saved twice by Zhuowen. Moreover, Zhuowen had even given up the position of Yunjin Hill's lord to him. He did not know how to repay Zhuowen's great kindness. He had even thought of going against Zhuowen before. This made Lu Yichuan feel quite ashamed. Zhuowen did not feel any regret. He had never thought of staying in Yunjin Hill for too long. He had already successfully broken through the heavens. Furthermore, Yunjin Hill did not have any higher-level visualization images. Therefore, he had already planned to leave. He planned to go to Ji Province to look for higher-level visualization techniques and cultivation resources. This was also the reason why he had dared to kill Morong Fugue. After he left Yunjin Hill, it would not be easy for the Morong family to find him. Moreover, with his current strength, unless the Morong family sent out a true expert, they might not be able to do anything to him. Lu Yichuan suddenly grabbed Zhuowen's shoulder. He looked at Zhuowen with a complicated gaze and said in a deep voice, Brother Zhua, the position of Lord has been my goal for so many years. It is also a goal that I have to achieve. Today, you have given up this position to me. I am extremely grateful. I don't dare to forget your kindness. Come with me. I have something I want to give to you. This item will definitely be of help to you when you face the Morong family in the future. Zhuowen was stunned. He looked at Lu Yichuan's mysterious expression. He thought for a moment and nodded. Thus, the two of them went to the other side of the ruins. Brother Zhua, do you know why Di Wenxing and Morong Fugue came looking for me? Lu Yichuan asked seriously. Zhuowen shook his head. Lu Yichuan's legend was true. Both Di Wenxing and Morong Fugue had captured Lu Yichuan alive. It seemed that Lu Yichuan had a big secret, because I have a star weapon fragment. It is called the Fire Toad. Di Wenxing was sent by Morong Fugue. Later, he was killed by you, Brother Zhua. Morong Fugue thought that I killed Di Wenxing, so he came to Yunjin territory personally to capture me. Later, I was defeated by De Qi and was captured alive. Lu Yichuan smiled bitterly. Zhuowen's expression changed. He had not expected Lu Yichuan to have a star weapon fragment. It was no wonder that he was targeted by the Morong family. Zhuowen looked at Lu Yichuan. He knew that there must be a reason why Lu Yichuan had told him this. Brother Zhua, I got the fire toad by chance, but my strength is too weak, and I don't have enough background. As the saying goes, a man's wealth is his own ruin. I still have the fire toad. I am afraid that I will be targeted again in the future. So, I plan to give the fire toad to you. Consider it as my repayment for saving my life twice and giving up the position of lord, Lu Yichuan said sincerely. Zhuowen looked at Lu Yichuan seriously. Although he had not been in the 100 Territories for long, he knew how precious a star weapon fragment was. It was a great opportunity for a cultivator to get one. However, Lu Yichuan was actually willing to give the astral weapon fragment to him. Wasn't this a little too generous? Brother Lu, don't you have any other conditions for giving me such a precious item? Just because I saved you and gave you the position of lord? Zhuowen asked with a frown. Lu Yichuan scratched his head awkwardly and said, Actually, there is one more condition. I am afraid that you, Brother Zhua, might not agree, so I am a little embarrassed to say it. Just say it. As long as I can do it, I will definitely help you. Zhuowen said. If it was in the past, Zhuowen would not be interested in star weapon fragments. But since the Tai word stone had absorbed the blood thorn and turned it into his strength, he had a great desire for star weapon fragments. Since Lu Yichuan was willing to give him the fire toad, Zhuowen was naturally willing to do something for Lu Yichuan. I once made an agreement with a woman from the Nangong family. As long as I become the Lord of Yunjin Ridge, she is willing to give me a chance to become her cultivation companion. And this chance is that I can defeat her cousin Nangong Wuji. Nangong Wuji is the most powerful genius among the younger generation of the Nangong family. He is extremely powerful. I think that even if I have the fire toad, I have no chance to defeat Nangong Wuji. But Brother Zhua, you are so powerful and talented. You may have a chance. As long as I defeat Nangong Wuji, I will be able to become Nangong Mei Er's cultivation companion. This is my greatest wish in life. Speaking of this, Lu Yichuan's eyes lit up. He seemed to be quite excited. Zhuowen was speechless. It turned out that Lu Yichuan fought so hard to become the Lord of Yunjin Ridge just for a woman. Does your agreement allow you to ask for help? Zhuowen asked. Chapter 37-31. Brother Zhua, you didn't even ask about Nangong Wuji's cultivation base before you agreed? Lu Yichuan asked in surprise. No matter how powerful Nangong Wuji is, he is only a young man. He is no match for me. Zhuowen said calmly. Lu Yichuan smiled bitterly and said in a low voice, although Nangong Wuji is at the peak of the heaven-treading change realm like De Qi, his ancestral Tao root is much more powerful than De Qi's. Oh, what kind of ancestral Tao root is it? Zhuowen asked curiously. Nangong Wuji has the blood-drinking ancestral Tao root. This ancestral Tao root is very special. When he fights with his enemies, he can absorb their blood essence to recover himself. In other words, as long as his enemies are still fighting, Nangong Wuji will be able to replenish his energy. He once killed an early void god transformation realm expert with this ancestral Tao root. When Lu Yichuan said this, the bitter smile on his face became even more intense. He had already accepted his fate. Even if he obtained the fire toad, he was still no match for Nangong Wuji. Moreover, Nangong Wuji was extremely talented. His cultivation speed was much faster than Lu Yichuan's. The gap between them would only grow bigger in the future. Zhuowen's combat strength was extremely abnormal. This ignited hope in Lu Yichuan's heart. That was why he went to look for Zhuowen. Oh, there is such an ancestral Tao root. Zhuowen frowned. It seemed like the 100 outer domains was indeed extraordinary. There were many more ancestral Tao roots here than in the lower domain. At the same time, Zhuowen also thought of Sakyamuni's ancestral Tao root. Sakyamuni was chosen by Bing Hui and brought to the deviant ghost tribe. The Nadi Shiva's ancestral Tao root must be very powerful as well. Nangong Wuji is one of the most terrifying geniuses among the younger generation of the Ji Prefecture's governor. Brother Zhua, you must think carefully. Nangong Wuji is not easy to deal with. Lu Yichuan said solemnly. Yes, I know. I have decided to help you with this. But give me some time. Zhuowen nodded. Although Nangong Wuji was powerful, Zhuowen was more confident in himself. If Nangong Wuji's cultivation advanced to the next level and reached the spirit transformation realm, he would be able to fuse with the fire toad's power. No matter how strong Nangong Wuji was, he would only be at the heaven-trampling transformation realm. Good. Brother Zhua, I believe in you. Tomorrow, I will personally go to the Gujian villa and pass the fire toad to you. Lu Yichuan said excitedly. Next, Lu Yichuan took the Lord's seal and bid farewell to Zhuowen and the others. He was already the new Lord of Yunjin Hill and planned to set up the Lord's mansion in the Clear Heart Society's headquarters. As for Zhuowen, he ordered the cultivator army to rebuild the Gujian manor. Not long after, the Gujian villa that was originally in ruins was completely rebuilt. Alchemist Lu, Miss Miaozhen, if you don't mind, you can stay in the manor for a few nights. Zhuowen said with a smile. Alchemist Lu and Lu Miaozhen were obviously uneasy, but they did not refuse. In the main hall, Alchemist Lu and Lu Miaozhen sat on the side seats, while Zhuowen sat on the main seat. Fan Shuang and the 10 swordsmen stood around him. Oh, right. Why does Murong Fugue want to capture Miss Miaozhen? Zhuowen asked curiously. In Zhuowen's opinion, Alchemist Lu and Lu Miaozhen did not have any background, and their identities were very ordinary. Why would they be targeted by Murong Fugue? Alchemist Lu's eyes flickered, and he sighed. It's all because Miaozhen's ancestral root is special. Murong Fugue has his eyes on her, because Miaozhen's ancestral root is the spiritual water root. Hearing that, Zhuowen was puzzled while the 10 swordsmen and Fan Shuang were shocked. It's the spiritual water root. No wonder Murong Fugue wants to capture Miss Miaozhen. Fan Shuang said in surprise. What's wrong with the spiritual water root? Zhuowen was puzzled. Manor Lord, you don't even know what the spiritual water root is. Fan Shuang asked curiously. Zhuowen rubbed his nose embarrassedly. After all, he had just come up from the lower realm and was a complete newbie. The spiritual water root is the best cultivation vessel in the 100 domains outside of the lower realm. If you dual cultivate with a female cultivator with the spiritual water root, you can greatly increase your cultivation. This is much more miraculous than any elixir. Fan Shuang looked at Lu Miaozhen with a complicated expression. Although the spiritual water root was a supreme grade ancestral root, it was also a ticking time bomb. It was not difficult for her to imagine that Lu Miaozhen's fate would be extremely tragic in the future. Lu Miaozhen lowered her head, and her eyes dimmed. There is still a chance for Miaozhen. Elder Yuqi of the Ascension sect has the spiritual water root, but she is an elder of the Ascension sect. She has a high status and powerful strength. As long as Miaozhen can become Elder Yuqi's disciple, her fate will change, Alchemist Lu suddenly said. The Ascension sect? Zhuowen's eyes narrowed. He had heard of the Ascension sect. It was said that it was one of the 5 sects in the Ji Prefecture. The 5 sects' foundation and power were not inferior to the 4 aristocratic families. If Lu Miaozhen was really chosen by the Ascension sect and entered the sect, no one would dare to touch her even if she had the spiritual water root. Then are you planning to go to the Ascension sect to participate in the recruitment ceremony? Fan Shuang asked. Alchemist Lu shook his head and said, that is not the case. I have heard that the Ascension sect will send a team to the many territories in the Yunjin region to recruit disciples. Looking at the time, I think the Ascension sect's team will be arriving soon. The leader this time is Elder Yuchi. Zhuowen nodded and said, if that is the case, then the two of you can stay in the Gujian villa for now. During this period, I will protect your safety until Lady Miaojin is taken in by the Ascension sect. Alchemist Lu and Lu Miaojin thanked Zhuowen excitedly. At night, outside the main hall, one sword was kneeling in the courtyard. Zhuowen walked out of the main hall slowly and looked at one sword. He said, "One sword, how long have you been stuck at the pinnacle of the divine transformation stage?" "Villa Master, I have reached the pinnacle of the divine transformation stage 1,000 years ago. However, I have not been able to grasp the key points of the spirit transformation stage." So, one sword said bitterly, the divine transformation stage is mainly a transformation of the physical body. The spirit transformation stage is a transformation of the soul. Your foundation is enough to break through to the spirit transformation stage. The reason why you have not broken through is because your soul is too weak. As Zhuowen spoke, he walked in front of one sword and said seriously, "I can raise your soul to a certain level in a short period of time. I can make it transform quickly and help you break through to the spirit transformation stage. However, it will be very painful. Can you accept it?" One sword said firmly, "Villa Master, as long as I can break through, I can accept any kind of pain." "All right." Zhuowen's gaze turned serious. He formed a sword with his right hand and pointed it at one sword's forehead. The soul power that contained the power of the primordial stone gathered into a purple current and poured into the depths of one sword's soul. One sword immediately let out a blood-curdling scream. All the hair on his body stood on end. His face was pale and beads of sweat rolled down his forehead. However, his gaze became firm. Chapter 37-32. When Zhuowen saw Yi Jian's performance, he nodded his head slightly. Yi Jian was indeed a talent that could be molded. Just his temperament was something that he admired. Time slowly passed. Finally, a powerful aura burst out from the courtyard and soared into the sky. This aura was extremely powerful, and it alarmed all the cultivators in the main city. This aura, it's definitely someone who broke through to the spirit transformation. Back then, President Lu of the Clear Heart Association had the same feeling when she broke through. "I never thought that someone would break through again." Looking at the direction, it's the Gujian villa who broke through over there. Many cultivators looked at the Gujian villa from afar, but no one dared to approach it. Ever since the battle between Yu Tianxiang and Di Wenxing, Zhuowen had already made a name for himself in the main city. Many people were in awe of Zhuowen. Without his permission, no one dared to approach the Gujian villa. Inside the villa, the cultivator army surrounded the main hall. Their eyes were filled with envy, especially the other 9-10 sword guards. They had joy in their eyes. They already knew that Yi Jian went to the main hall because the villa lord wanted to help him break through. From the looks of it, Yi Jian had successfully broken through. "I'll only help you up to here. You'll have to deal with the spirit transformation, heavenly tribulation yourself." Zhuowen withdrew his sword fingers and placed his hands behind his back as he returned to the main hall. Yi Jian knelt on the ground and bowed 3 times towards Zhuowen. Then he stomped his right foot and flew out of the villa. The spirit transformation, heavenly tribulation, wasn't simple. If he were to directly undergo it in the villa would be torn down. Not long later, a terrifying lightning tribulation appeared in a bamboo forest far away from the villa. Bolts of blue lightning descended from the depths of the sky. They were like blue halberds that pierced towards the person undergoing the tribulation. The heavenly tribulation lasted for an entire night. At dawn, A man whose flesh was torn open staggered out from the depths of the bamboo forest. The 10 sword guards and the cultivator army were already waiting outside the bamboo forest. When the man walked out, 9 of the 10 sword guards immediately went forward to support Yi Jian. Big brother, you successfully broke through? You're now in the spirit transformation stage. Jian said excitedly, "It's all thanks to the Manor Lord that I was able to break through. If it wasn't for the Manor Lord, I don't know when I would be able to successfully break through. Help me back first. I've just finished my tribulation. I'm too weak." One sword said in a weak voice. 9 of the 10 swords guards hurriedly helped Yi Jian back to the Gujian villa. On the other hand, their respect for Zhuowen grew. Not only was Zhuowen powerful, but he could also help others break through their cultivation. This ability was truly terrifying. At the same time, they were proud to have a manor lord like Zhuowen. At noon on the second day, Lu Yichuan paid another visit to the Gujian villa. Zhuowen met Lu Yichuan alone. In a secret room, Lu Yichuan and Zhuowen sat facing each other. In front of them was a table. "Brother Zhua, this is the fire toad." Lu Yichuan stretched out his right hand. There was a lifelike toad pattern on his right arm. "Next, I will need to peel off the fire toad. This will consume a lot of broken divine power. I'm afraid I will need your help." Lu Yichuan said, "Brother Lu, don't worry. I will share my broken divine power with you and help you peel off the fire toad." Zhuowen said seriously. Lu Yichuan did not speak any nonsense. After receiving Zhuowen's reply, he closed his eyes and formed a seal with his left hand. It landed on the fire toad pattern on his right arm. Suddenly, the fire toad seemed to have come alive. The surrounding temperature increased rapidly. Waves of fire aura filled the secret room like a tyrannosaurus. Lu Yichuan's face turned pale. Moreover, Zhuowen discovered that Lu Yichuan's cheeks began to sink in. His body was also shriveling at a speed visible to the naked eye. Zhuowen was rather shocked. He did not expect that peeling off the fire toad would consume so much energy. Seeing that Lu Yichuan's aura was getting weaker and weaker, Zhuowen did not dare to delay. He placed his right hand on Lu Yichuan's back and surged broken divine power into Lu Yichuan's body. He soon discovered that his broken divine power seemed to have entered a bottomless pit. It was rapidly being absorbed. After about half an hour, Zhuowen's body began to shrivel. However, Lu Yichuan was still absorbing broken divine power. Zhuowen knew that this was a critical moment. He must not drop the ball. Therefore, he took out the chaos crystal and began to absorb while continuously transmitting broken divine power to Lu Yichuan. Another 2 hours passed. Lu Yichuan suddenly opened his eyes. Then he pulled his left hand, and the fire toad pattern on his right arm disappeared. In Lu Yichuan's palm, a jade fragment appeared. If one looked carefully, this jade fragment was a toad's eye. Zhuowen could sense an extremely rich fire element aura from this toad's eye. Moreover, this aura was extremely violent and destructive. However, Zhuowen could sense that this fire toad's aura was slightly weaker than the blood thorn he obtained previously. However, the weakness was not very obvious. Lu Yichuan slowly opened his eyes. He was extremely tired and said weakly, Brother Zhua, this is the fragment of the star weapon fire toad. Although it's only an eye, its power is extremely impressive. Because I only completed the first stage of the blood sacrifice, I can only unleash a portion of its power. If not, I would not have been captured so easily by that Deqi. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes. He looked at Lu Yichuan and said, You completed the blood sacrifice using the lives of mortals? Lu Yichuan shook his head and said, I'm not that despicable. I used myself and the Brothers of the Clear Heart Association, who volunteered to donate blood every day. After many days and nights, I barely completed the first stage of the blood sacrifice. Hearing this, Wen's opinion of Lu Yichuan rose. Although Lu Yichuan was quite selfish, his heart was actually not bad. He knew how to repay kindness. Also, brother Zhua, since you obtained this fire toad fragment, it's best that you don't perform the blood sacrifice rashly. This method is against the harmony of the heavens. The sin of the blood sacrifice will not be on the star weapon spirit's head. It will be on you, the possessor. Although sin is illusory, it actually exists in the unseen world. Some great evildoers often end up in a miserable state. Lu Yichuan reminded Zhuowen. Zhuowen smiled. He had a heaven-defying treasure, like the primordial stone. He did not need the blood sacrifice to fully unleash the power of the star weapon. At the entrance of the villa, after sending Lu Yichuan off, Zhuowen told Fan Shuang that he planned to go into seclusion for a few days. During this period, he was not to disturb him. In the secret room, Zhuowen held the fire toad fragment in his right hand. His eyes flickered. He did what he did last time and probed into the fire toad with his divine sense. A feeling of dizziness assaulted him. When discovered that the place he was currently in was actually a world filled with a blazing sea of fire. A sea of fire rushed toward them. Fire energy filled the sky and the ground. Chapter 37-33. It's a different person again. Human, if you want to borrow my power, you have to sacrifice 100,000 people first. Only then will I consider lending you my power. The huge fire toad looked down at Zhuowen. Its huge eyes stared coldly at Zhuowen. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes. This fire toad's appetite was really big. It wanted to sacrifice 100,000 people as soon as it opened its mouth. Did it really think that it was his master? 100,000 people as a sacrifice. I'm afraid I can't do that. Zhuowen said indifferently. Then 50,000 people. This is the lowest number I can give you. If you can't do it, I'll swallow your soul. The fire toad said rudely, I'm sorry, I can't take out 50,000 people either. Zhuowen still said calmly. The fire toad's eyes suddenly became unfriendly. It stared at Zhuowen and said, Do you want to die? You can't even do what I asked, and you're delusional about getting my power? How about this? How many people can you sacrifice? As long as it's not too little, I'll give you some power if I'm in a good mood. Zhuowen smiled and said, I can't give you even one person, but I want all of your power. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly, the fire toad's body burst out with a terrifying flame aura. The surrounding sea of fire formed a huge fire dragon that swept toward Zhuowen. You dare to trick me? Fine, I'll kill you now. The fire toad's furious voice came. The fire dragon came across the sky and instantly drowned Zhuowen. However, the fire toad didn't notice that when the fire dragon drowned Zhuowen, Zhuowen took out an ordinary stone from the macro world. Bang! Suddenly, a strange purple light emerged from the fire dragon's body and instantly dyed the fiery red flames on the surface of the fire dragon a deep purple. Crack! 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 The fire dragon twisted in pain and finally collapsed into countless sparks. Zhuowen slowly walked out of the countless sparks. A stone emitting a mysterious purple light floated in front of him. The fire toad stared at the stone floating in front of Zhuowen. It sensed an aura of fear and suffocation. This is primordial stone? How could this be? How did you get this kind of stone? The flame toad let out a sharp cry, and then it retreated repeatedly while looking at the floating stone with fear in its eyes. Zhuowen sneered as he took a step forward. His body was like lightning as he instantly appeared in front of the fire toad. Then he tossed the supreme word stone to the flame toad. The flame toad cried out in fear. It mobilized the energy of the surrounding sea of flames to envelop the supreme word stone. It wanted to burn it down. Unfortunately, it didn't help at all. The supreme word stone emitted a mysterious purple light, and the sea of flames was completely shattered. Then, the supreme word stone smashed into the flame toad. The fire toad cried out in pain. Then, it was rapidly sucked into the supreme word stone. Zhuowen slowly opened his eyes. The supreme word stone was floating in front of him. At this moment, the supreme word stone landed on his palm. Then, Zhuowen saw a purple eyeball pattern appear on his palm. Moreover, this purple eyeball pattern was constantly approaching the purple thorn. In the end, it fused with the purple thorn. The new pattern was a purple dagger, but there was a lifelike purple eyeball at the handle of the dagger. This two different star weapon fragments fused together. Zhuowen was completely stupefied. He originally thought that after the supreme word stone absorbed the flame toad, the pattern of the flame toad would appear again and attach to other parts of his body. However, he never expected that the flame toad and the purple thorn would fuse together in the end. Moreover, after the fusion, this new star weapon fragment was much more powerful than the flame toad and the purple thorn. Its strength had already surpassed the half-moon divine fire spear and reached the power of a level 5 heaven-piercing divine weapon. Without a doubt, this fusion of star weapon fragments had become Zhuowen's strongest trump card. Zhuowen suppressed the extreme excitement in his heart. He looked at the new pattern on his palm and said in a deep voice, "Naturally, this is the fusion of the purple thorn and the flame toad. Then, its new name shall be the purple toad." Zhuowen looked at the supreme word stone floating in front of him. At this moment, he realized that the mystery of the immemorial primordial stone was still beyond his expectations. Not only did it contain the extremely powerful immemorial primordial technique, but it could also fuse with star weapon fragments. The origin of the immemorial primordial stone was probably extraordinary. Dong dong dong. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Zhuowen opened the door and saw Fan Shuang standing outside. "Fan Shuang, what's the matter?" Zhuowen asked. Fan Shuang said respectfully, "The Ascension Sex team has arrived in the main city today. Lu Yichuan is now receiving them. Lady Miaozhen has also been selected by Elder Yuqi of the Ascension Sect. She is here to bid farewell, so I took the liberty to disturb." Bid farewell? When did the Ascension Sex team arrive in the main city? Zhuowen asked in surprise. 3 days ago. My lord, you have been in seclusion for 7 days. Fan Shuang answered. Zhuowen was stunned. He did not expect that 7 days had already passed. It seemed like the flow of time in the flame toad's alternate space was completely different from the outside world. He clearly felt that only a short while had passed, but 7 days had already passed in the outside world. "Let's go. Bring me there." After Zhuowen finished speaking, he followed Fan Shuang and left the courtyard. In the Gujin Villa's guest hall, a group of 5 people sat quietly. The person in the lead was a beautiful woman in her 30s. The dense aura of water exuding from the beautiful woman's body was much stronger than Lu Miaozhen's. Sitting on both sides of the beautiful woman were a man and a woman. The man was handsome, and the woman was pretty. Lu Miaozhen sat at the last seat, and alchemist Lu accompanied her silently. "What's going on?" "The Gujian Villa's villa master is too arrogant. He's just the villa master of a small Yunjin ridge, and he actually needs someone to report to him before he can come out. Now, he's leaving us here. Does he really think he's someone important?" The young woman said unhappily. If it weren't for junior sister Miaozhen, we wouldn't have come to such a lousy place. The young man said unhappily. However, after he finished speaking, the young man's gaze was still fixed on Lu Miaozhen. After he found out that Lu Miaozhen had the spiritual water root, he had already decided to pursue Lu Miaozhen and make her his cultivation partner. It should be known that a spiritual water root was the best Tao root to be a cultivation partner. As long as Lu Miaozhen could become his cultivation partner, his cultivation speed would definitely be much faster in the future. The young woman also noticed that the young man kept looking at Lu Miaozhen, and she snorted with dissatisfaction. She had been interested in the young man for a long time, and the young man was also interested in her. However, Lu Miaozhen had appeared. She also knew that with Lu Miaozhen's spiritual water root, the young man would definitely not pay too much attention to her. Instead, he would revolve around Lu Miaozhen. Therefore, the young woman disliked Lu Miaozhen more and more. She was also extremely displeased with the Gujin Villa's villa master. Chapter 37-34. The beautiful woman, who was resting with her eyes closed, slowly opened her eyes. She said indifferently, "Stop talking. The two of you, the host is here." The young man and young woman immediately fell silent. Then they saw two figures walking in from outside the guest hall. These two people were naturally Zhuowen and Fan Shuang. When Lu Miaozhen saw Zhuowen enter, she immediately stood up and went forward to greet him. She held Zhuowen's hand and said excitedly, "Big brother Zhuo, I've successfully become an inner court disciple of the Ascension sect. It's all thanks to you for protecting me these days. Otherwise, we wouldn't have lasted until now." Apothecary Lu also sighed and said, "It's all thanks to you, Zhuowen. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't even be able to see the people from Ascension sect." Zhuowen waved his hand and said, "Apothecary Lu, Miaozhen, you're too polite. You saved my life back then. You're like my parents. It's only right that I help you." When the young man saw Lu Miaozhen holding Zhuowen's hand directly, he frowned and was a little angry. Lu Miaozhen was the woman he liked. How could he tolerate her being so intimate with someone else? Especially when the young man realized that Zhuowen's cultivation was similar to his, which was around the peak of the fetal god transformation stage. A trace of contempt appeared in his eyes. He was an inner disciple of Ascension sect, and he cultivated high-grade divine abilities. The disciples of Ascension sect were much stronger than ordinary cultivators of the same level. Therefore, when the young man saw that Zhuowen's cultivation was the same as his, he didn't think much of him. The young man suddenly stood up and stepped in front of Lu Miaozhen. He looked at Zhuowen with an unfriendly gaze. Originally, Zhuowen, Lu Miaozhen, and Apothecary Lu were chatting happily. However, when the young man joined in, he immediately destroyed the harmonious atmosphere. "Senior brother sang?" Lu Miaozhen looked at the young man in front of her in confusion. "You're the villa master of Gujian Villa. We're from Ascension sect. We came to visit your villa personally, but you actually made us wait. Does your villa not want to exist anymore?" The young man said indifferently. Lu Miaozhen was so anxious that tears were about to fall from her eyes. She did not expect that the young man would directly come up and question Zhuowen. Lu Miaozhen turned her gaze to the beautiful woman, only to see that the beautiful woman had her eyes closed again, as if she hadn't seen what had happened. "Master," Lu Miaozhen opened her mouth, intending to ask the beautiful woman for help, but she was stopped by Apothecary Lu. After all, Apothecary Lu had lived for a long time. He was much more knowledgeable about the ways of the world than Lu Miaozhen. From the beautiful woman's current attitude, it could be seen that she was actually somewhat displeased with Zhuowen's late arrival. This was why she allowed the young man to do whatever he wanted. As for Zhuowen, Alchemist Lu wasn't too worried. He was well aware of Zhuowen's strength. He definitely wouldn't be at a disadvantage against this young man. On the contrary, the young man should be the one at a disadvantage. This manor lord was in seclusion just now, so I didn't know that an extremely important guest had come to pay a visit. That was why I was slightly late. I don't think the Ascension sect only has mad dogs. There must be reasonable people. Zhuowen didn't look at the young man. Instead, his gaze landed on the beautiful woman who was still sitting in her seat with her eyes closed. The young man was startled. His shoulders were shaking from anger. This bastard dares to call me a mad dog. This is infuriating. You are merely a manor lord of Yunjin Hill. How dare you speak without thinking in front of me? Die. The young man's eyes were full of killer's intent. He formed a hand seal with his right hand and slammed it towards Zhuowen. The sound of an elephant's trumpeting resonated in the air. Countless gusts of wind swirled around and formed the silhouette of a giant elephant behind the young man. This was the young man's strongest technique, the elephant hoof. When he punched out, it was as if countless elephants were stomping down. Senior brother is using this technique. Is he going to kill him? The young woman's expression changed. She originally thought the young man was only going to teach him a lesson. She didn't think that he was going to kill him. The beautiful woman opened her eyes and frowned. Just as she was about to step out to stop the young man, something unexpected happened. Zhuowen also threw out a punch. It was a very ordinary punch. However, when he punched out, a purple wave spread out in all directions. Bang! When the two fists collided, the young man screamed in pain. His right fist exploded into a cloud of blood mist and fell heavily in the courtyard outside the guest hall. Puff! The young man spat out a mouthful of blood. He glared at Zhuowen and fainted. On the other hand, Zhuowen stood on the same spot. He was as motionless as a rock and as steady as Mount Tai. This guy is so strong. The young woman was stunned. The young man was an expert who ranked 11th among the Ascension sect's inner disciples. His strength shouldn't be underestimated. However, he couldn't even withstand one blow from this person and was knocked unconscious. Is this guy really at the divine transformation stage? The beautiful woman's figure flashed and came to the young man's side in the courtyard. After checking him, her beautiful eyes turned cold. You completely crippled his right hand. The beautiful woman's voice was filled with coldness as she said coldly. Zhuowen didn't care at all. He said indifferently, I gave the Ascension sect face because Miaozhen joined the Ascension sect and is now a disciple of the Ascension sect. I didn't kill him and only crippled one of his arms. If it wasn't for Miaozhen, he would have been a dead man just now. The young woman's heart turned cold. For the first time, she looked at Zhuowen seriously. She originally didn't care about the little manor master. However, he was actually so powerful and arrogant. Where did this person get his confidence from? I'm Elder Yuqi of the Ascension sect. How dare you cripple my disciple in front of me? You really don't take me seriously, the beautiful woman said with a murderous aura. Zhuowen's eyes were calm. He said, What? You want to avenge your disciple? Master, don't. Big brother Zhuo is my benefactor. He has been protecting me all this time. Please don't do anything to big brother Zhuo. Lu Miaozhen couldn't hold it in any longer and said hurriedly. Elder Yuqi took a deep breath and said in a low voice, Miaozhen, don't worry. I won't kill this person. However, I have to teach him a lesson. He is really too arrogant. He doesn't take the Ascension sect seriously at all. Speaking up to this point, Elder Yuqi looked at Zhuowen and said, Ingwei offended you first. You injured him and he deserved it. However, you are arrogant and look down on the Ascension sect. I'm going to interfere in this matter. I'll give you a chance. Take 3 of my moves. If you can take it, I won't pursue this matter. However, if you can't take it, kneel down and apologize to Ying-wei. Lu Miaojin's pretty face changed slightly. She hurriedly said, Big Brother Zhuo, don't agree. My master is a void god transformation expert. You won't be able to take 3 of her moves. What? A void god transformation expert, as expected of the Ascension sect. Even an ordinary elder is a void god transformation expert. Fan Shuang's face changed drastically. She hurriedly tried to dissuade Zhuowen. Zhuowen's lips curled up slightly. He said indifferently, What if I can take 3 of your moves and defeat you? So what? Elder Yuqi was stunned. Was Zhuowen's brain flooded with water? How dare he dream of defeating her? That's impossible, Elder Yuqi said indifferently. Chapter 37-35. The young lady stood up abruptly and looked at Elder Yuqi in shock. Master, this divine pill. Before the young lady could finish her sentence, she was interrupted by Elder Yuqi. Qinin, you don't have to worry about this. I am a void god transformation realm cultivator. How could I lose to a fetal god transformation realm cultivator? Elder Yuqi said coldly. The young lady opened her mouth, but she was speechless. The void god transformation realm was 2 realms higher than the fetal god transformation realm. Qinin believed that Elder Yuqi would definitely win. Zhuowen was just boasting. However, the young lady felt that something was amiss, but she could not put her finger on it. Elder Yuqi walked out of the guest hall and came to the courtyard outside. Come out, Elder Yuqi said coldly as she looked at Zhuowen. Let's go to the empty land outside the villa. With our battle, I'm afraid my villa will be torn down again. Zhuowen stepped out of the guest hall and flew out of the villa. Elder Yuqi coldly snorted. She took a step into the air and soared into the sky. Her posture was clearly much more elegant than Zhuowen's. The commotion caused by Zhuowen and Elder Yuqi alerted many people in the villa. The 10 swordsmen also came out of their respective residences. When they saw Fan Shuang and the others coming out of the guest hall, they quickly went up to ask about it. When they found out that Zhuowen was fighting with an elder from the Ascension sect, they were shocked. The villa master was overconfident. The Ascension sect was one of the 5 sects in the Ji prefecture. Their elders were basically all void god transformation realm cultivators. They did not believe that their villa master had the ability to fight with such an expert. When the people from the Ascension sect and Gujin Villa arrived at the empty land outside the villa, Zhuowen and Elder Yuqi were standing on the empty land facing each other. Villa Master Zhuo, I won't hold back. Once I attack, even if you don't die, you will be severely injured. If you know what's good for you, kneel down and apologize now. I won't make things difficult for you, Elder Yuqi said indifferently. Zhuowen shrugged and said with a grin, We have already come to this stage. Your words are useless. Let's fight. Elder Yuqi snorted coldly and didn't say anything else. She grasped at the air with her jade-like hand, and a divine sword that radiated a watery light appeared in her palm. Divine ability, Water Dragon Strangulation. Elder Yuqi swung the divine sword in her hand. Instantly, the terrifying water elements in the surroundings gathered together and turned into a water domain. Then, the streams of water gathered to form 3 huge water dragons. The 3 water dragons intertwined with each other and shot towards Zhuowen like drills. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes. He actually wanted to test how big the gap was between him and Elder Yuqi, who was already at the initial void god transformation stage. without using any of his trump cards. Thinking of this, Zhuowen gathered all the energy in his body and circulated the primordial grand mist technique at high speed. The purple ripples began to become violent, like a violent storm condensing around Zhuowen's body. Zhuowen took a step forward with his right foot, and his waist bent like a bow. Then he suddenly shot out like an arrow that had left the bowstring. Everywhere he passed, the sound of bowstring breaking could be heard. Boom! Zhuowen punched out. This punch contained his divine soul's sword intent and the power of the primordial grand mist technique. It was also the most powerful energy in his body. Bang! The punch landed on the 3 water dragons, and an ear-piercing sound rang out. Then, the 3 water dragons exploded, turning into countless droplets that fell to the ground. Zhuowen retreated dozens of steps, and he only managed to stop himself when he reached the bamboo forest behind him. As expected of a void god transformation stage expert, her strength is indeed strong. Zhuowen wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and his eyes were filled with fighting spirit. He had used all his strength, and he was able to borrow the strength of an initial void god transformation stage expert. From this, one could see how terrifying the power of the primordial grand mist technique was. If it wasn't the primordial grand mist chant, but the simplified version of the grand mist chant that Zhuowen had cultivated in the past, Zhuowen would have suffered heavy injuries in this exchange of blows instead of suffering light injuries like now. What? You actually blocked it? Elder Yuchi looked at Zhuowen in disbelief. In all of history, he was the first Earth embryo transformation stage cultivator that could block the attack of a void god transformation stage cultivator. Is this guy a freak? How did he block Master's divine ability? The young woman's mouth fell open, and she was completely stunned. The people of the Gujian villa were also dumbfounded. The villa master was stronger than they had imagined, and he was even more monstrous. Elder Yuchi, did you not eat? This attack is a bit too weak. Zhuowen walked out of the bamboo forest and said mockingly. Elder Yuchi's eyes darkened. This guy actually dares to provoke me? Is he courting death? I didn't expect to be mocked by a mere void god transformation stage cultivator. It seems like I have to get serious. Elder Yuchi's eyes were cold as she slashed out 8 times with the divine sword in her hand. 8 streaks of sword chi flew over and surrounded Zhuowen. Then they froze into 8 ice mirrors, covering Zhuowen's surroundings and above. This is the divine ability that made me famous, the 8 extreme sword dance. Many cultivators have died under this divine ability. I don't know how long you can last. Elder Yuchi's indifferent voice sounded. Then Zhuowen realized that streaks of sword chi had appeared in the ice mirror around him. These streaks of sword chi flew out and blasted towards Zhuowen's vitals. What surprised Zhuowen even more was that when these streaks of sword chi landed on the ice mirror, they quickly bounced back. Moreover, the bouncing force was even stronger than before. These streaks of sword chi would become stronger as the number of times they bounced back increased. If he couldn't break through this ice mirror as soon as possible, he wouldn't have any more chances in the future. Master, Big Brother Zhuo is my savior. He has been protecting me all this time. Do you really want to kill him? In the outside world, Lu Miaozhen stood in front of Elder Yuchi, tears streaming down her face. Looking at Lu Miaozhen in front of her, Elder Yuchi's expression became much friendlier. She patted Lu Miaozhen's head and said, Miaozhen, don't worry. I know what I'm doing. I won't really take his life. I'll just let him suffer a little. When he can't last any longer in the 8th grade sword dance, I'll release the divine ability and let him out. Hearing this, Lu Miaozhen finally felt relieved. Just as Elder Yuchi was about to say something, she abruptly raised her head. To her horror, She discovered that the 8-sided ice mirror within the domain of the 8th level sword dance was beginning to crack. In the end, the ice mirror completely shattered. Whoosh! A divine spear burning with powerful flames shot out from the shattered powder and directly flew towards Elder Yuchi. The half-moon divine fire spear was extremely fast. It cut through the air and instantly arrived in front of Elder Yuchi. Elder Yuchi was caught off guard and could only temporarily block the divine sword in front of her. Poochie! With a clear clank, Elder Yuchi spat out a mouthful of blood and flew backwards. The divine sword in her hand actually slipped out of her hand. You actually have a divine weapon at the peak of the 4th grade. How can you have such a high-grade divine weapon? Elder Yuchi felt that it was inconceivable. Although she was a void god transformation expert, the divine weapon she used was only a 2nd grade, heaven-breaking divine weapon. Chapter 37-36. Zhuowen took a step forward and caught up with the half-moon god fire spear. His right hand gripped the spear tightly as he took another step forward and rushed towards Elder Yuchi at an even faster speed. As if Zhuowen's speed was too fast, the flames on the surface of the half-moon god fire spear formed a bright ray of light the moment Zhuowen swept past. Seeing that Zhuowen was about to catch up, Elder Yuchi's beautiful eyes narrowed. She no longer cared about bullying the weak and shouted, "Void spirit, come out!" As soon as she said that, dense water elemental energy emerged from Elder Yuchi's body. This energy revolved around Elder Yuchi and formed a huge blue giant. This giant was formed purely from water elemental energy, and Elder Yuchi was at the heart of the blue giant. Bang! Zhuowen held the half-moon god fire spear and approached Elder Yuchi's side. He held the spear with both hands and swung it fiercely. The half-moon god fire spear heavily smashed onto the blue giant's body. Countless water elemental energy evaporated, forming a dense white mist. Then, the lower half of the blue giant evaporated into nothingness. Only the upper half of the blue giant remained as it fell to the ground. Zhuowen was also sent flying with a groan because of the huge force. He smashed through many bamboos and finally landed in the depths of the bamboo forest before barely stopping. Is this the power of the void god transformation? Summoning a powerful void god. Zhuowen stood up with great difficulty. His gaze became extremely solemn as he looked at the blue giant that surrounded Elder Yuchi. Elder Yuchi's condition wasn't good either. The half-moon god fire spear was a peak rank, 4-heaven-breaking divine weapon. Its power was terrifying. Although she had the void god blocking, she couldn't block all of the half-moon god fire spear's power. A portion of the power still landed on her body. Elder Yuchi struggled for a while and recalled the upper half of her void god back into her body. She knelt on one knee and smiled bitterly. "I've lost this battle." The surroundings were completely silent. It was so quiet that it was terrifying. What? Master actually lost? The young woman's eyes widened as she looked at Elder Yuchi, who was kneeling on one knee on the ground. She even forgot to help her up. Sang Yingui, who had been knocked unconscious by Zhuowen, slowly regained consciousness, just in time to see the final scene of Zhuowen defeating Elder Yuchi. What the hell is going on? Elder Yuchi, Sang Yingui immediately sobered up. He wasn't an idiot. When he saw this scene, he knew that Elder Yuchi had lost to Zhuowen. Recalling that he had just provoked Zhuowen, his heart trembled, and he almost fainted again. Fan Shuang, Lu Miaozhen, and the others were astounded. They originally thought that it was already very impressive that Zhuowen could take 3 moves from Elder Yuchi. However, Zhuowen gave them a huge surprise and defeated Elder Yuchi directly. "You are very strong, and you even have such a powerful divine artifact. Join the Ascension sect. As long as you join the Ascension sect, you will immediately become a core disciple of the Ascension sect, Elder Yuchi said in a deep voice. When Sang Yingui and Qinin heard Elder Yuchi's invitation, they opened their mouths but didn't dare to speak. Elder Yuchi was right. Even if Zhuowen didn't have the half-moon divine fire spear, his strength was still far superior to cultivators of the same level. The Ascension sect had no reason to reject such a monstrous genius. Zhuowen's gaze was calm as he said, "What benefits will I get if I join the Ascension sect? As long as you join the Ascension sect, we will use all our resources to nurture you. It has been a long time since a true monstrous genius appeared in our Ascension sect. As long as you join us, you will be the #1 genius of the Ascension sect. You will enjoy the highest treatment in the Ascension sect," Elder Yuchi said with a burning gaze. "I will consider this," Zhuowen said in a deep voice. Speaking of which, he was indeed tempted. After all, the Ascension sect was one of the 5 great sects of the Ji Prefecture. The sect must have plenty of divine abilities. They might even have the high-level visualization diagram that he wanted. As long as he joined the Ascension sect, he wouldn't have to work so hard to find divine abilities. He could immediately learn many powerful divine abilities. "You should be called Zhuowen, right? This is my recommendation token. As long as you have thought it through, you can bring this token to the Ascension sect to find me." Elder Yuchi also knew that it was impossible for Zhuowen to join the Ascension sect so easily. She had to give Zhuowen enough time to consider. Zhuowen took the token and said, "Oh, right, you have lost to me. Shouldn't you give me the divine pearl energy gathering pill that you mentioned?" Elder Yuchi's expression froze as she revealed a pained expression. However, she still took out a brocade box from her spirit ring. Inside this brocade box is the divine pearl energy gathering pill. This divine pill is suitable for cultivators of the Heaven Trampling Change tier and the Void God tier. Although you are powerful, your cultivation level is not high. It is best that you don't use it casually at the moment. You can use it after your cultivation level has increased. Elder Yuchi kindly reminded him. Zhuowen nodded. He didn't take the brocade box. Instead, he asked, "Elder Yuchi, I have another question for you." Elder Yuchi was startled. She instinctively said, "What question? Just say it." "Do you have a high-level visualization diagram on you?" Zhuowen asked. "I do have a visualization diagram on me, but it is not a high-level one. At most, it can only cultivate one's divine sense to the heaven-crushing 5th transformation," Elder Yuchi said, slightly embarrassed. Zhuowen's eyes lit up. He pushed the brocade box back to Elder Yuchi. "Elder Yuchi, as long as you give me the visualization diagram on you, I don't want this medicinal pill." Zhuowen said. Elder Yuchi was startled. She asked strangely, "Zhuowen, are you sure? The value of the divine pearl energy gathering pill is definitely above the visualization diagram. Moreover, my visualization diagram can only be considered a normal visualization diagram. It is not a special visualization diagram." So, Zhuowen shook his head with a smile and said, "I've decided. I only want the visualization diagram. I'll leave this divine pill to you. You need this thing more than I do." Elder Yuchi accepted the brocade box, feeling quite moved. Zhuowen's guess was right. This divine pill was very important to her. Her cultivation level was about to break through again. If she wanted to break through smoothly, she had to use this divine pearl energy gathering pill. Otherwise, her failure rate would be very high. Now that Zhuowen took the initiative to give up the divine pill, Elder Yuchi was very moved. She thought that Zhuowen deliberately gave it up for her. Thus, Elder Yuchi looked at Zhuowen with a strange light in her eyes. It was just that what Elder Yuchi did not know was that compared to the divine pill, what Zhuowen needed more urgently was the visualization diagram. He was not really giving it up. If Elder Yuchi knew what Zhuowen was thinking, her gratitude towards Zhuowen in her heart would probably decrease significantly. This is the ancient sword visualization diagram. Cultivating the divine soul with this visualization diagram will let the divine soul become as sharp as an ancient sword. After Elder Yuchi put away the brocade box, she passed a scroll to Zhuowen. Zhuowen unfolded the scroll and immediately discovered that there was a very ancient-looking divine sword depicted inside the scroll. Apart from this, there was nothing else. But Zhuowen could feel an intense sharpness in this divine sword, charging straight into the depths of his divine soul. Chapter 37:37. Elder Yuchi and the others stayed in Yunjin Hill for 3 days. During these 3 days, they took in another mortal with a decent Taoist root. Then, they bid farewell to Zhuowen and left the main city. Apothecary Lu followed Lu Miaojin into the Ascension sect. Of course, he did not enter as Lu Miaojin's grandfather, but as a servant. There were many mortals in a large sect like the Ascension sect. These mortals basically did chores in the sect and took care of the disciples' food and lodging. Moreover, there were many wealthy disciples who would bring along some servants for them to order around after entering the sect. Apothecary Lu took advantage of this loophole. As Lu Miaojin's servant, he could naturally stay by her side. Zhuowen silently watched Lu Miaojin and Apothecary Lu's departing figures with a gratified expression. Lu Miaojin's Taoist root was very strong, but it was also a source of trouble. Now that she had an expert like Elder Yuchi to rely on and the Ascension sect to support her, Lu Miaojin's safety was guaranteed. Brother Zhua, I'm afraid we can't stay in Yunjin Hill City anymore. Lu Yichuan slowly walked to Zhuowen's side and looked expressionlessly at Elder Yuchi's departing group. Brother Lu, what's going on? Zhuowen asked in surprise. The Morong family already knows about Morong Fugue's death. I think they'll send someone to look for us soon. Lu Yichuan said, Spread the news that Zhuowen killed Morong Fugue. This has nothing to do with you or Yunjin Hill. Zhuowen said. Lu Yichuan smiled bitterly. The Morong family is very overbearing. After knowing that Morong Fugue died in Yunjin Hill, they'll definitely send someone to massacre the city. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed. He said in a low voice, Massacre the city? Isn't that too much? Lu Yichuan mocked himself. Brother Zhua, you haven't seen how overbearing the 4 aristocratic families are before. In their eyes, mortals are ants that they can squash at any time. They don't care about the lives of mortals at all. Moreover, the 4 aristocratic families have good astral weapon fragments. Massacring the city can be used as a blood sacrifice. Usually when the aristocratic families don't have an excuse, they'll find an excuse to massacre a few cities. Now that the Morong family has an excuse, I think they'll massacre the entire Yunjin Hill city. The aristocratic families are too powerful, we can't resist. Zhuowen's expression became very unsightly. He never expected that the 4 great clans would be so despicable as to completely disregard the lives of mortals. One had to know that when he was still in the lower realms, there was a clear rule between cultivators that they were not allowed to casually slaughter mortals. However, there was clearly no such rule in the 100 Outer Realms. The mortals were the most. I want to wait for the people from the Morong family to arrive. I want to see if they really want to massacre the city, Zhuowen said in a deep voice. Lu Yichuan's Chuan. Zhuowen's eyes were cold. Every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. I killed Morong Fugue, so if the Morong family finds fault with me, I'll admit it. But if they shift their anger to mortals, I can't just ignore it. Lu Yichuan clenched his fists and said, Zhuowen, is it worth it for the mortals in this city? Let me ask you, back then, did you start cultivating as a mortal to reach your current level? I have my own principles. Since it's something I did, I'll take responsibility for it. I won't implicate others, even if they're mortals you don't care about. Zhuowen waved his sleeves and returned to the main city. Lu Yichuan looked at Zhuowen's back and opened his mouth. His gaze was complicated. After Zhuowen returned to the Gujian villa, he began to cultivate the ancient sword visualization art in seclusion. Because he had the green lotus visualization art as a foundation, it was easy for him to get started. It only took him a few days to cultivate to the 3rd level of the ancient sword visualization art. There were 5 levels to the ancient sword visualization art. If he could cultivate to the 5th level, his soul would transform to the heaven-crushing 5 changes. While Zhuowen was cultivating in seclusion, a huge divine ship swept across the sky above Yunjin City. There were 5 figures standing on the deck of the divine ship. The leader was a middle-aged man in gray robes. There was a rather hideous scar on the right side of his face. His name was Murong Rue. He was a member of the Murong family's elder group. His cultivation was slightly stronger than Elder Yuchi of the Ascension sect. He was already at the mid-stage of the Heaven Ascension change. Next to Murong Rue was a man in his 30s. He was dressed in white and held a folding fan in his hand. The man in white was not from the Murong family. He was Nangong Ying, a member of the Nangong family. Although Nangong Ying's cultivation was not comparable to Murong Rue's, he was already at the peak of the Heaven Ascension change. Brother Nangong, I owe you a favor this time. You're willing to give up Yunjin City to the Murong family. Murong Rue glanced at the man in white and smiled faintly. Nangong Ying smiled slightly and said nonchalantly, Brother Murong, you're too kind. A direct descendant of the Murong family died in the territory under the Nangong family's jurisdiction. The Nangong family can hardly escape the blame. In order to express our sincerity and to continue the good relationship between our 2 families, giving up a city is nothing, Nangong Ying said with a fake smile. Murong Rue nodded and looked ahead. His eyes were cold and filled with murderous intent. Murong Fugue was his son. A few days ago, he found that Murong Fugue's jade tablet had shattered. It was obvious that he had been killed. The grudge of his son's death was irreconcilable. Therefore, he found Murong Fugue's last trace and found out that he went to Yunjin City and never came out again. He knew that Murong Fugue must have died in Yunjin City. However, Murong Rue did not immediately go to Yunjin City because he knew that Yunjin City was not the Murong family's territory but the Nangong family's. If he rashly went to Yunjin City to kill someone, he would definitely offend the Nangong family. Therefore, he immediately negotiated with the people of the Nangong family. After paying a certain price, the Nangong family was finally willing to give up Yunjin City and let him have full authority to deal with it. Murong Rue knew that after killing Murong Fugue, the murderer must have escaped. The first thing he wanted to do when he went to Yunjin City was to find out who killed Murong Fugue before he massacred the entire city. He wanted everyone in Yunjin City to be buried with his son. That's Yunjin City. I remember that some time ago, it was the day of the feudal lord selection. It was said that the feudal lord of Yunjin City had changed hands. The information about the new feudal lord had just been reported to the Nangong family. Chapter 37-38. The corners of Nangong Ying's mouth curled into a smile as he said, Brother Murong, since you've already paid enough, Yunjin City will be yours for the next 3 days. You can kill whoever you want. Murong Rue snorted coldly, his expression ugly. In order to obtain the right to massacre the city, he had paid a huge price for the Nangong family. When the divine ship arrived outside the main city gate, Morong Rue took out a formation plate with his right hand. Then he placed the formation plate outside Yunjin City. Suddenly, a strong wave of formation Tao rippled like water and enveloped the entire city. The cultivators in Yunjin City were shocked, and their eyes were filled with uncertainty. This was the second time they had felt such a strong formation Tao ripple. The first time was when Murong Fugue surrounded the main city with a formation. I'm Lu Yichuan, the current lord of Yunjin City. I'm Nangong Ying from the Nangong family. Get out here. After Murong Rue set up the formation, Nangong Ying used his divine power to spread his voice throughout the main city. Soon, Lu Yichuan arrived at the city gate with a few people. Lu Yichuan greets Lord Nangong Ying. Lu Yichuan lowered his head and sighed in his heart. He knew that what was coming had come. He knew that Yunjin City was the territory of the Nangong family. He thought that the Murong family would not act recklessly for the sake of the Nangong family. Now, it seemed that he was too naive. Do you know Murong Fugue? Nangong Ying asked faintly. Lu Yichuan's eyes flashed, and he nodded. I do. Some time ago, Murong Fugue died in Yunjin City. Do you know? Nangong Ying asked faintly. Lu Yichuan hesitated for a moment and remembered Zhuowen's words. He nodded and said, I know. Bang! As soon as Lu Yichuan finished speaking, Nangong Ying punched Lu Yichuan's abdomen. Lu Yichuan spat out blood and flew backward, crashing into the city wall behind him. Murong Rue's eyes were filled with murderous intent, but he remained silent. He wanted to know who killed Murong Fugue. Although Lu Yichuan's cultivation was good, it was not enough to kill Murong Fugue. He knew that the Deqi by Murong Fugue's side was a heaven ascension change realm elite. Lu Yichuan was no match for him. Murong Fugue is a direct descendant of the Murong family. He died in Yunjin City. How dare you not inform us? How dare you? Nangong Ying said coldly. Lu Yichuan forced himself up and knelt on the ground. Master Nangong, it's not that I don't want to report it, but the expert who killed young Master Murong is still in the main city. He didn't allow me to report it. Otherwise, he would kill me. So Murong Rue's eyes narrowed. His breathing quickened as he said, You're saying that the murderer is still in the main city? Lu Yichuan looked at Murong Rue. Although Nangong Ying did not introduce this person, he could guess that the middle-aged man in front of him was a powerhouse from the Murong family who had come to avenge Murong Fugue. Lu Yichuan sighed in his heart. When Zhuowen decided to stay, he had already made up an excuse to put all the blame on Zhuowen. This way, the mortals of Yunjin City might be able to save their lives. Yes, the murderer is still in the main city. Lu Yichuan nodded. If that's the case, quickly take me there. Murong Rue said anxiously. Lu Yichuan said in a low voice, Master Nangong, young Master Murong's death was caused by the murderer. It has nothing to do with our main city. Once we find the murderer, I hope that Master Nangong can speak up for Yunjin City. Nangong Ying narrowed his eyes and said coldly, Are you bargaining with me? I wouldn't dare. Before Lu Yichuan could finish, a foot stepped on his chest and stomped him to the ground. Nangong Ying stepped on Lu Yichuan and looked down at him condescendingly. Who do you think you are? You still dare to bargain with me? Are you tired of living? To tell you the truth, Yunjin City has been controlled by Murong Rue for the past 3 days. You're now his livestock. If he doesn't like you, he can kill you at will. All of you are just cheap lives. Now get up and take us to the murderer, or else I'll kill you right now. Lu Yichuan's face was pale, but his eyes were soon filled with rage. What did the Nangong family think they were? Was he treating them like livestock? They killed and gave up when they wanted to. Were their lives so worthless? You ant, how dare you glare at me and get angry? You have no right to be angry. Nangonging stepped on Lu Yichuan's face, causing blood to splatter everywhere. Murong Rue stopped Nangonging and said, "Brother Nangong, we can't kill this guy yet. We still need him to take us to the murderer." Nangonging nodded and lifted Lu Yichuan up. "Now, take us to the murderer." In the Gujian villa, Fan Shuang and the 10 swordsmen gathered outside the main hall. Their faces were filled with panic. Guild leader Lu just sent me a message saying that the Murong family is here. Even if they find the murderer, they're planning to massacre the main city. What should we do? Fan Shuang asked anxiously. One sword frowned. He was also panicking. The Murong family was a huge force. The people they sent were definitely not people they could fight against. Bang! Suddenly, a terrifying sword intent came from the main hall. The sword intent was sharp, ancient, and tragic. When Fan Shuang and the others outside the main hall felt the sword intent, they couldn't help but kneel on the ground and tremble. It was too terrifying. Creak! The main hall's doors opened slowly. Zhuowen walked out slowly. His eyes were as bright as the stars. There was a ray of light shining between his brows. If one looked closely, they would see that the light was a sword-shaped image. It was so sharp that one couldn't look at it directly. Zhuowen had been cultivating the ancient sword visualization image for the past few days in seclusion. After rapidly cultivating to the 3rd level, he relied on his strong comprehension ability to finally cultivate to the 4th level today. His soul had also broken through to the heaven-crushing 4th transformation. He could clearly feel that his divine soul had undergone a qualitative change, especially since the ancient sword visualization image was extremely compatible with his soul sword intent. The power of his soul sword intent would increase by another level because of the ancient sword visualization image. Zhuowen's body was exuding a powerful sword intent. It was as if he was an unsheathed sword. Zhuowen saw Fan Shuang, the 10 swordsmen, and the others kneeling in the courtyard. They were trembling. He realized that the sword intent on his body was too terrifying. He slowly closed his eyes. When he opened them again, the terrifying sword intent around him had completely disappeared. He had withdrawn it. Fan Shuang, the 10 swordsmen, and the others returned to normal. They slowly got up. However, their gazes towards Zhuo were filled with respect and fear. They realized that the villa master in front of them was becoming more and more unfathomable. Chapter 3739. The Murong family has found us so quickly? Zhuowen frowned. He was rather surprised. Fan Shuang quickly said, "Chief, Murong Fugue's death in Yunjin region is no longer a secret. It's not strange that the Murong family knows about it. Moreover, the Murong family is very powerful. They are at least in the virtual god transformation stage. There's no need for us to fight them head-on." The 10 swordsmen stood aside and did not say anything. They had already sworn their loyalty to Zhuowen. Therefore, they would not disobey Zhuowen's orders. Even if Zhuowen asked them to attack the Murong family, the 10 swordsmen would not bat an eyelid. There's no need for us to avoid them. Zhuowen, want to let the Murong family know that Yunjin region is not so easy to enter. Zhuowen said coldly. Fan Shuang's expression changed slightly. She still wanted to persuade him, but when she saw Zhuowen's cold gaze, she swallowed the words that she was about to say. Zhuowen was not boasting. With his current strength, the number of people who could kill him in the Ji prefecture could be counted on one hand. During this time, he had already looked up the geographical information of the Hushu region. He knew that there were 10 main regions in the Hushu region. The masters of each main region were at the peak of the Heaven Breaker stage. The Ji prefecture belonged to one of the 10 main regions, the Wukong region of the Liyuan main region. In the Ji prefecture, the most powerful people were at the Heaven Breaker stage, 5 elemental transformation stage. Although Zhuowen was far from being at the 5 elemental transformation stage, he was confident that he could escape. Moreover, the Murong family would not send such a powerful person to Yunjin region to cause trouble for him. After all, although Murong Fugue was a direct descendant of the Murong family, he was at most an ordinary genius. If Zhuowen were to display his true power, Zhuowen knew that the Murong family would think twice and would no longer treat him as an insignificant ant. At the very least, it was not worth it to offend a void god transformation expert for a mere direct descendant. Zhuowen had already seen through the rules of the 100 domains. Here, only great power was everything. As long as you are strong enough, you will be able to obtain enough respect. One sword from today onwards, you're the villa master of the ancient sword villa. From today onwards, everything I do will have nothing to do with the Gujian villa. Zhuowen said indifferently as he took out a token and tossed it to Yi Jian. Yi Jian took the token. He was naturally not unfamiliar with it. The reason for that was because it was the title plate of the ancient sword villa's villa master. The person who held that title plate was the ancient sword villa's villa master. Manor Lord, I dare not take this sword. One sword quickly knelt down and presented the token to Zhuowen with both hands. With your cultivation, you're qualified to be the villa master of the Gujian villa. Besides, I won't be staying in Yunjin Hill for too long. Once I've dealt with the matters in the Murong family, I'll leave. One sword. This is the last order I'm giving you. Do you understand? Zhuowen said flatly. One sword hesitated for a moment before he stood up again. He bowed deeply to Zhuowen and said, Manor Lord, I accept your order. Swoosh. At that moment, there was a terrifying sound of the wind breaking, and it instantly reached the top of the villa. Along with the sound of the wind breaking, there was a violent gale that swept through the entire villa. An indescribably terrifying oppression came from above, and it was as though there were numerous mountains that were crushing down. Fan Shuang and the 10 swordsmen's eyes narrowed. Under the oppression, they knelt down and their bodies trembled. The oppression was too terrifying, and it was not something that they could contend with. Zhuowen did not move. His robe fluttered in the gale. He slowly lifted his head and looked at the huge, holy ship that had suddenly appeared above the villa. On the deck of the holy ship, Murong Rue was like a deity. He looked down at the people in the villa with cold eyes and a murderous aura. This terrifying pressure was released precisely from Murong Rue's body. Beside Murong Rue, Nan Gonging was holding the half-dead Lu Yichuan in his right hand. He said flatly, Who is Zhuowen? Zhuowen waved his right hand. Suddenly, a simple yet sharp sword qi flowed out from all the acupuncture points on his body. The terrifying oppression that had enveloped the villa was instantly dispersed by the sword qi. Fan Shuang, the 10 swordsmen, and the rest immediately relaxed and stood up with difficulty. Nan Gonging and Murong Rue locked their gazes on Zhuowen at the same time. I am Zhuowen. Also, who do you think you are? You barged into my villa without any explanation and questioned me instead of being the host. You don't even have the most basic manners. Looks like you're a bunch of fatherless and motherless bastards. Zhuowen said casually. As soon as he said that, the temperature in the surroundings dropped. Fan Shuang, the 10 swordsmen, and the rest secretly complained in their hearts. They already knew that the intruder was from the Murong family. Although they knew that the Murong family did not come with good intentions, they still had to put on a show. But now, Zhuowen did not even put on a show. Nan Gonging and Murong Rue were stunned. They had thought of many possibilities, but they did not expect the murderer to be so arrogant when they were in front of him. Who gave him the right to be so arrogant? Who did he think he was? I am Nangonging of the Nangong family. Yunjin Hill is one of the territories of the Nangong family. It is under the jurisdiction of the Nangong family. You're just a small villa lord in Yunjin Hill. You don't have the right to speak in front of me. Kneel down. Nangong Ying's eyes were gloomy. His right hand blasted out, and a surge of energy condensed into a large hand that crushed down on Zhuowen. But to Nangong Ying's surprise, Zhuowen only waved his hand, and the energy hand he condensed shattered. This guy, Nangong Ying's face became serious. This person could easily break his energy hand, so he was at least at the same level as him. If you have something to say, say it quickly. Don't waste my time. Zhuowen said impatiently. You. Nangong Ying was furious, but Murong Rue stopped him. I am Murong Rue of the Murong family. I heard that you killed Murong Fugue. Is that true? Murong Rue's voice was very calm, but Zhuowen could feel that Murong Rue's voice was filled with a terrifying killing intent. I have no enmity with Murong Fugue, but he came to my villa to cause trouble. He even threatened to kill me and tear down my villa. I didn't want to have a conflict with him, but he wanted a yard after I gave him an inch. So I killed him. Zhuowen said calmly, Hee, who do you think you are? What's your life worth? What's your villa worth? He wanted to kill you, and that's your honor. You should let him kill you. He tore down your villa, and that's your villa's blessing. But you killed him. He's my son. Today, you'll be buried with him. Murong Rue clenched his fists so tightly that they cracked. His voice was as deep as a wild beast's. Zhuowen sneered and said, Your son's life is a life, but aren't other people's lives? Since he wanted to kill me, I killed him. Isn't that right and proper? Chapter 3740. Shut up, Zhuowen shouted coldly. His eyes were cold and filled with murderous intent. You're Nangong Ying, right? You said that Yunjin Hill is the territory of the Nangong family. Now that the people of the Murong family have barged into Yunjin Hill, you're helping Murong Rue to force the people of your territory to commit suicide. I'd like to ask you, Nangong Ying, is your surname Nangong or Murong? Nangong Ying's expression changed. Zhuowen's words were too harsh. He was accusing Nangong Ying of betrayal. Humph, you're sharp-tongued. I'll tear your mouth apart. Nangong Ying was exasperated. He threw Louis Chuan onto the deck and jumped off the divine ship, heading toward Zhuowen in the villa. Zhuowen stood where he was silently, watching Nangong Ying get closer and closer. Hee, looks like you were just putting on an act. Now you're scared out of your wits. Nangong Ying saw Zhuowen standing where he was, and mistakenly thought that Zhuowen was scared out of his wits. He was pleased with himself. However, he did not show any mercy. He formed a seal with both hands and stomped his right leg. Divine power, divine elephant stomping the ground. When Nangong Ying stomped his right foot, a gigantic divine elephant appeared in the void behind him. The divine elephant lifted its front foot, which was as large as a mountain, and stomped toward Zhuowen. When the huge front foot landed on Zhuowen's body, a terrifying intent soared into the sky. Then, the gigantic divine elephant's shadow let out a sorrowful cry and collapsed completely. A divine sword with a golden glow shot into the sky from where Zhuowen was and pierced Nangong Ying's chest. Uffed, Nangong Ying spat out a mouthful of blood. Driven by the divine sword, he fell to the ground, creating a huge crater. When the dust settled, Nangong Ying's chest was pierced by the sword will of the divine soul. He was pinned to the ground. You're merely at the peak of the ascension change realm. How dare you be so arrogant in front of me? Zhuowen put his hands behind his back and did not even look at Nangong Ying. Instead, he looked up at Murong Rue, whose expression had changed slightly. Didn't you want to avenge your son? Just come. What are you hesitating for? Zhuowen sneered. Morong Rui's gaze turned serious. He looked deeply at Zhuowen and said, I know that Fugue has a guard at the pinnacle of the Ascension Change realm like De Qi by his side, but he still died in your hands. It seems that you do have some skills. However, it's still too early for you to provoke me. You're no match for me. Morong Rui walked out of the divine ship and stepped into the void, looking down at Zhuowen. Then come up here and fight. You must die today. Morong Rui floated in the air and looked down coldly at Zhuowen. Zhuowen was silent for a long time before he said in a low voice, Come down. Right now, Zhuowen's mood was as if thousands of horses were galloping past him. His cultivation base was only at the peak of the divine fetal transformation realm, so he couldn't fly through the air yet. Although he had an extraordinary divine soul, it couldn't allow him to walk through the sky like an Ascension Change realm cultivator. After all, the matter and gravity of the 100 domains outside the realm were much stronger than the lower realm. He could fly through the lower realm's starry sky and was omnipotent. However, after he entered the 100 domains outside the realm, he could only fly after cultivating to the Ascension Change realm. Are you looking down on me? I told you to come up here. Morong Rui said somewhat angrily. Zhuowen didn't say anything else. He pointed his right hand at his glabella and released another divine soul sword, Intent. His sword finger fell on Morong Rui, who was in the air, and the divine soul sword Intent pierced through the air and slashed at Morong Rui. At the same time, Zhuowen leaped up, but he didn't go toward Morong Rui. Instead, he went toward the divine ship. Morong Rui didn't dare to be careless. He had already seen the power of the divine soul sword Intent, so he used all his strength and punched out. Instantly, the shadow of his fist burned like fire and covered the entire sky. Bang! Morong Rui shattered the divine soul sword Intent with a punch, and then discovered that Zhuowen had already entered the deck of the divine ship. His expression changed drastically. There were still 3 cultivators on the divine ship's deck that Morong Rui had brought with him. In the instant that Zhuowen entered the deck, they all launched their most powerful attacks. However, under the power of the 3 divine soul sword Intents, their glabellas were all pierced through, and they completely died. These 3 were only Ascension Change realm cultivators, and Zhuowen's divine soul had already evolved to about the early stage of the heaven-crushing 4th transformation. The might of the divine soul sword Intent that he had condensed was no less than the attack of an ordinary void god transformation realm cultivator. These 3 naturally couldn't block the power of the divine soul sword Intent. Zhuowen grabbed Lu Yichuan, who had fainted on the deck, and rushed out of the divine ship. Die! Morong Rui instantly rushed over, his eyes crimson red, and his right fist fiercely smashed toward Zhuowen. These 3 were all trusted subordinates that he had nurtured over the years and who knew how much time and effort he had spent on them. They were his most loyal subordinates. Now, they had all been killed by Zhuowen in a few moves. This loss to him was like a drop of blood. With the new and old grudges added together, Morong Rui now only wanted to blast Zhuowen into smithereens. Zhuowen's expression changed slightly, and he also launched a punch. The power of his divine soul sword Intent was integrated into the power of his fist, and sword chi streaked through the air, piercing through the sky. Bang! The 2 fists collided, forming a terrifying explosion of air around them, spreading out in all directions in the form of a ring. Meanwhile, Zhuowen gave a muffled groan and spat out a mouthful of blood as he fell to the ground. Meanwhile, Morong Rui retreated a few dozen steps in the air. His body swayed, and he once again steadied himself and hovered in the air. Your aura, why is it so weak? In the instant that Morong Rue exchanged blows with Zhuowen, he could sense that the aura on Zhuowen's body was only at the divine fetus transformation realm. But how could this be? In his eyes, divine fetus transformation realm cultivators were no different from ants. A casual punch from him could destroy thousands of divine fetus transformation realm cultivators. However, the person in front of him also had the aura of a divine fetus transformation realm cultivator, and yet he had such powerful strength. This guy must have concealed his cultivation. It seems that his concealment technique is very powerful. Even I couldn't see through it. Morong Rue frowned, and he thought to himself. Zhuowen struggled to get up from the deep pit in the ground, and he wiped the blood off the side of his mouth. This Morong Rue is really powerful, and he is much more powerful than Elder Yuchi of the Ascension sect. He should be a cultivator at the middle stage of the empty god transformation realm. Zhuowen muttered to himself with a gloomy look in his eyes. Fan Shuang and the 10 swordsmen quickly ran to his side, and their faces were filled with worry. You guys take Lu Yichuan away first. Try to get as far away from here as possible. My battle with Morong Rue will cause quite a commotion. Zhuowen handed the unconscious Lu Yichuan to the 10 swordsmen and asked them to leave quickly. Leave? Do you think you can leave? Morong Rue stepped in the air with his right foot, and the air exploded continuously. Morong Rue shot forward like a cannonball. Die, you old bastard. Zhuowen knew that he couldn't hold back anymore. He took out the half-moon god fire spear and threw it at Morong Rue. Boom, boom, boom. Terrifying flames burst out from the half-moon god fire spear, and everywhere it passed, it was filled with glaring flames that surged into the sky. A terrifying aura spread out, and Morong Rue's face changed drastically. Chapter 3741. A strong sense of danger forced Morong Rue to take out his natal artifact without hesitation and use it to block in front of him. Morong Rue's natal artifact was a bronze halberd that emitted a terrifying aura. However, it was far inferior to the half-moon god fire spear. After all, the half-moon god fire spear was a peak rank 4 heaven-piercing artifact, while Morong Rue's bronze halberd was only a rank 3 heaven-piercing artifact. Morong Rue's eyes were cold. He knew that the bronze halberd might not be able to block the half-moon god fire spear. Therefore, Morong Rue was very cautious. The moment he took out the bronze halberd, he also summoned his hollow spirit. Morong Rue's hollow spirit was a godly bull that was covered in bronze scales and emitted a strange green light. Rumble! The half-moon god fire spear was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, it collided with the bronze halberd. The surrounding air was completely distorted as a violent explosion filled the air above the villa. It was like countless fireworks, gorgeous and colorful. Then Morong Rue's pupils shrank as he realized that the bronze halberd did not last long before it was pierced by the half-moon god fire spear and turned into dust. Then the half-moon divine fire spear's momentum did not decrease in the slightest as it continued to fly towards Zhuowen. Mu, the godly bull, roared as it stepped on the sky. The 2 horns on its head collided with the half-moon god fire spear. Rumble! The explosion this time was much more terrifying than the previous one. A huge fireball appeared above the villa. Terrifying light rays shot out in all directions. Everyone in the main city was blinded by the light and could only close their eyes in fear. Zhuowen groaned as he smashed onto the ground. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face became extremely pale. Although his strength was far superior to those of the same level, his strength was not enough to fight against a hollow god transformation stage expert. After all, the half-moon god fire spear was a rank 4 heaven-piercing artifact. The amount of energy he needed to use, it was terrifying. Just now, when he threw it with all his strength, 90% of the energy in his body was sucked away. He felt like he was about to collapse. When the explosion gradually subsided, Zhuowen saw the half-moon god fire spear stuck in the center of the villa ruins. On the body of the spear, a blazing divine fire burned fiercely, as if it would never be extinguished under the half-moon god fire spear. There was a figure lying on the ground. The tip of the spear had pierced through this person's chest, nailing him to the ground. This person was Morong Rue. You ant. If it wasn't for this heaven-breaking rank 4 divine artifact, how could I have lost to you? Morong Rue's eyes were wide open as he roared with anger, but it was a pity that his injuries were too severe. Furthermore, he was nailed to the ground by the half-moon god fire spear, unable to move at all. Zhuowen coughed up some blood and slowly stood up. His gaze became incomparably cold. He walked towards Morong Rue and said in a low voice, "Then why don't you say that you're bullying the weak? You're at the middle stage of the void god transformation stage, and I'm only at the peak of the fetal god transformation stage. If you're not trash, then what are you?" Zhuowen came in front of Morong Rue. The killing intent in his eyes was as vast as the sea. When Morong Rue felt this terrifying killing intent, he finally started to feel fear. In his view, coming to Cloud Brocade Ridge this time should originally be a one-sided massacre by him. But he did not expect that someone would charge in halfway and beat him to serious injuries instead, ending up incomparably wretched. What do you want to do?" Morong Rue asked without confidence. "What do I want to do? Could it be that you still can't tell?" Zhuowen smiled coldly, the killing intent in his eyes becoming even thicker. He unleashed a divine soul sword intent, his sword finger landing between Morong Rue's brows. Puchi, the terrifying power of the divine soul sword intent poured into Morong Rue's divine soul in its entirety, starting an unprecedented great destruction. Morong Rue screamed, miserably, struggling nonstop. Even though his divine soul was also at the heaven-breaking 4th transformation, its rank was even higher than Zhuowen's. But Zhuowen's divine soul fused with the high character stone, its power mysterious and unfathomable, coupled with the terrifying destructive power of the divine soul sword intent. Morong Rue naturally could not withstand the attack of the divine soul sword intent. However, Morong Rue's divine soul was truly powerful. The divine soul sword intent was not enough to deal a fatal blow to Morong Rue. Not only did this guy forcefully negate the power of the divine soul sword intent, but he also survived. Zhuowen, I was in the wrong this time. I shouldn't have dealt with you indiscriminately. You have to think carefully. I am an elder of the Morong family. My status in the Morong family is not low. If you kill me, then you will really be at odds with the Morong family. Morong Rue was finally terrified, and his voice began to soften. If I don't kill you, then I will be at odds with the Morong family. Why shouldn't I kill you? Zhuowen's eyes were terrifyingly calm. After saying this, he unleashed 3 divine soul sword intents. This time, Morong Rue could no longer withstand the divine soul sword intent's corrosion. Amidst his screams, his divine soul was completely destroyed. After killing Morong Rue, Zhuowen put away Morong Rue's spirit ring. Then he unleashed a divine flame to burn Morong Rue's body to ashes. After dealing with Morong Rue, Fan Shuang, the 10 swordsmen, and the others had already returned to the ruins of the villa. When they saw Morong Rue's dead body, which was stabbed into the ruins by the half-moon divine flame spear, they were all dumbfounded. Morong Rue is dead. They mumbled to themselves as if they were in a dream. Then They saw Zhuowen not far away, struggling to stand up. They quickly went forward to support Zhuowen. "Villa Master, you are too powerful." Even Murong Rue, a middle-stage empty god transformation expert, was no match for you. The 10 swordsmen's eyes were filled with reverence and excitement as they stared at Zhuowen, their eyes filled with awe. Zhuowen's power was beyond their imagination. He was much more powerful than the first Villa Master. Murong Rue was a high-level expert in the Murong family. He was one of the most powerful experts in the Murong family. For Zhuowen to be able to defeat such an expert, it was clear how powerful Zhuowen was. On the other hand, Fan Shuang's beautiful eyes were filled with worry. Murong Rue was considered a high-level expert in the Murong family. If even Murong Rue was dead, it meant that Zhuowen and the Murong family would not rest until one of them was dead. Zhuowen took out a healing elixir. After consuming it, he sat down cross-legged and meditated for a while. When his injuries had recovered slightly, he walked towards Nangong Ying, who was still pinned to the ground by the spiritual sword essence. You, who are you?" Nangong Ying's eyes were filled with fear. The young man in front of him had killed Murong Rue. How powerful was he? Nangong Ying also realized that a person with such great power could not be a nobody. How could such an expert be willing to hide in a small place like Yunjin territory? "I'm just a nameless pawn." You, on the other hand, are from the Nangong family. Not only did you not protect the people in your territory, you even brought the Murong family to kill people in your territory. People like you deserve to die. Zhuowen's eyes were filled with killing intent. Nangong Ying quickly shouted, "This has nothing to do with me. This is the decision of the Nangong family. Zhuowen, I beg you, don't kill me. I'm just an innocent person who gave orders." Innocent? If you were innocent, you wouldn't have allowed Murong Rue to take control of the lives of the people in the main city. If you were innocent, you wouldn't have indiscriminately asked me to kneel and hand over the verdict. If you are innocent, then there are no innocent people in this world. Chapter 3742. Fan Shuang, 10 swordsmen. I'm giving you one last order. Spread the news of Nangong Ying and Murong Rue's deaths. The person who killed them is Zhuowen. Today, I'll be leaving Yunjin Hill for Ascension Sect. When the news of my departure spreads, the Nangong and Murong families will come for me. They won't care about Yunjin Hill anymore. After Zhuowen finished speaking to Fan Shuang, 10 swordsmen, and the rest, he took out the divine boat and left Yunjin Hill City. Fan Shuang, 10 swordsmen, and the rest looked at Zhuowen, who was already far away. Are we really going to reveal Master's whereabouts to the Nangong and Murong families? One sword frowned and asked hesitantly, "This is Master's last order. We can only do this. Even if we don't do this, when the Nangong and Murong families come to Yunjin Hill, they will force Master to tell us. The reason why Manor Lord is doing this is to protect everyone in Yunjin region. Murong Rue is Murong Fugue's father. When Murong Fugue was killed, he paid the price to the Nangong family and planned to massacre the city. Now that Murong Rue is dead, when the Murong family finds out who the murderer is, they won't be so bored as to vent their anger on Yunjin Hill. Yunjin Hill is under the Nangong family's jurisdiction. The Nangong family won't do something like massacring a city in their own territory." Fan Shuang sighed softly. She was smart to begin with. From Zhuowen's words, she had already understood what Zhuowen meant. Lu Yichuan was being supported by 10 swordsmen. Although his injuries had not fully healed, he was much more clear-headed. Before Zhuowen left, he had also sent a message to Jian Wushuang, telling Jian Wushuang to postpone his challenge to Nangong Wuji. After Jian Wushuang joined the Ascension sect and cultivated there for a while, he would contact Jian Wushuang again. Brother Zhua, you must get through this, Lu Yichuan mumbled to himself. One day after Zhuowen left, the news of Nangong Ying and Murong Rui's deaths reached the Nangong and Murong families. In a magnificent main hall of the Murong family, a middle-aged man smashed the armrest on his right and said coldly, "Murong Rui is dead? Who killed him?" Below the main hall, a subordinate knelt down and respectfully handed a crystal ball to the middle-aged man. The crystal ball recorded the battle between Zhuowen, Nangong Ying, and Murong Rui. When the middle-aged man saw Zhuowen bring out the half-moon god fire spear, his eyes instantly blazed. Murong Wuji, Murong spear, Murong, 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 and Murongs and Murong. Murong, Murong, and Murong, 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 and Murong, and was Murong s Murong. However, this person was clearly a loose cultivator, yet he possessed such a divine artifact. How could the middle-aged man not be tempted? Pass down the order. Have Elder Yen bring a spirit master to find this person's exact location. Then, kill him and bring back his spirit ring. The middle-aged man said coldly. The subordinate who was kneeling on the ground was stunned. He couldn't help but say, "Master, are we really going to send Elder Yichuan? He's second only to you in the Murong family. He's been guarding the family." The middle-aged man's eyes were cold. "Didn't you hear what I said? I want you to inform Elder Yichuan. Since this person can kill Murong Rui, other than me, only Elder Yichuan can suppress him." "Yes," the subordinate hurriedly replied and left. The same thing happened in the Nangong family. When the Nangong family received the news of Nangong Ying's death, the entire family was shaken. Of course, they also received the same crystal ball and knew that the person who killed Nangong Ying was Zhuowen. The Nangong family's master also sent an elder and a divine spear to pursue Zhuowen. Divine spear was a type of divine spear in the 100 domains. They could use the 8 trigrams to predict the past and future. Of course, most of the divine spear's predictions were very vague. However, using a cultivator's aura to predict a cultivator's current location was a basic ability of a divine spear. Therefore, when many forces were pursuing their enemies, they would bring along a divine spear to pursue them. The success rate was very high. Of course, there were very few divine spears in the 100 domains. Moreover, hiring a divine spear required a large sum of money. In the 100 domains, only large forces had the capital to hire a divine spear to divine various matters. Moreover, the higher the level of the divine spear, the more expensive the appearance fee. Therefore, even large forces would not casually hire a divine spear unless it was a big matter. After all, it was too expensive. However, the Nangong family had only sent out an ordinary elder. Their goal was actually the divine spear of the half-moon. However, they did not plan to fight to the death with Zhuowen. Instead, they secretly followed him and waited for the Murong family to truly fight with Zhuowen. When both sides were injured, they would sit back and reap the benefits. After Zhuowen left the main city, he changed his appearance and rushed towards the Ascension sect. Back then, Elder Yuchi had not only given him a token, but also the exact location of the Ascension sect. The Ascension sect was located in a vast plain to the southeast of the Ji prefecture governor's residence. There were many cities of various sizes there, with the Ascension sect as the center. They were built in a ring shape in all directions. It was a magnificent sight. Originally, when Elder Yuchi was still around, he had not made up his mind. However, after killing the Nangong family and the Murong family, he knew that if he wanted to cultivate in peace, he would either have to leave the Ji prefecture or join a force. Now, the best choice was the Ascension sect. Moreover, he had grasped too few divine abilities. He was even lacking in visualization diagrams. It would be very difficult for him to gather divine abilities and visualization diagrams that were suitable for him. However, those large forces had developed for countless years. They definitely had many divine abilities and visualization diagrams. He would always be able to pick one that was suitable for him. As for leaving the Ji prefecture, Zhuowen had no plans to do so at the moment. His current strength was still too weak. Even if he left the Ji prefecture, what was the use? Only when he was strong enough would he have the capital to look for Moyen Wushang. In the future, he would also have the capital to face the Nuwa family's clan leader. However, he was too weak now. There was nothing he could do. Therefore, his priority was to increase his cultivation as soon as possible. Boom. Boom. Chapter 3743. The terrifying energy from the explosions spread out like ripples in water. The mountains and rivers within a few thousand miles were flattened. After the explosion gradually subsided, a divine ship suddenly emerged from another part of the forest. The holy ship was huge, and there were more than 10 people on the deck. Their auras were not weak. A middle-aged man with a long beard stood at the front of the deck. He looked to be in his 40s and had a square face. His eyes flashed with a cold light. He was Elder Ingyen, who was sent by the Morong family. He was second only to the master of the Morong family, and was a late empty god transformation realm elite. He was much more powerful than Morong Rue. Beside the middle-aged man was an old lady in a long robe. Her face was full of wrinkles, and her cheeks were dry. She was a spiritual speaker who was invited by the Morong family. Elder Ingyen relied on the old lady's prediction to find out Zhuowen's exact location. The power of the God Crasher is still so terrifying. I'm afraid he's dead after being hit by it. Elder Ingyen looked indifferent. He had come prepared this time. The God Crasher was a powerful cannon that was specially used to deal with empty god transformation realm elites. The God Crasher that was shot earlier was not cheap. It was enough to kill a beginning stage empty god transformation realm cultivator. Even a middle stage empty god transformation realm cultivator would be severely injured. From Elder Ingyen's point of view, Zhuowen was definitely going to die after being hit by the God Crasher, since he was caught off guard. No, Elder Ingyen, he's not dead. His aura is so terrifying. The old lady's face suddenly changed, and she quickly reminded Elder Ingyen. Shush! A terrifying sound pierced through the air and came from the ruins below. Upon closer inspection, it was a holy spear that was emitting intense flames. The holy spear was like a rainbow that pierced through the sky. It tore through the surrounding space and headed straight for the holy ship that Elder Ingyen and the rest were on. Elder Ingyen's face changed slightly. However, his face soon turned hot. He took out a blood-red spear from his spiritual ring and threw it at the holy spear below. Boom! The spear and the spear collided, and countless sparks exploded. Elder Ingyen then steered the holy ship away from the place. Bang! The blood-colored spear was sent flying. Elder Ingyen took a step forward and caught the blood-colored spear. He noticed that the luster on the surface of the blood-red spear had slightly dimmed, and his pupils couldn't help but shrink a few times. But soon, his gaze became much hotter. Patriarch's guess is indeed correct. The divine spear on this child's body is not an ordinary heaven-crushing Tier 4 divine artifact. Elder Ingyen returned to the deck and looked down at the young man standing in the ruins. This young man was naturally Zhuowen. Zhuowen's expression turned grave. He looked at the blood spear in Elder Ingyen's hand and frowned. Heaven Breaker, rank 4 divine artifact. Zhuowen muttered to himself. Naturally, he could tell that the blood spear was not simple. to be able to block the bombardment of the half-moon god fire spear. This blood spear was at least at the heaven-breaking 4th tier. Zhuowen's guess was correct. The blood spear in Elder Ingyen's hand was indeed a heaven-breaking 4th tier divine artifact. However, it was only at the early stage of the heaven-breaking 4th tier. This blood spear was one of the only 2 heaven-breaking 4th tier divine artifacts in the Morong family. It did not belong to Elder Ingyen. Instead, it was specially given to Elder Ingyen to use in order to capture Zhuowen. You're Zhuowen, right? Not only did you not repent after killing a direct descendant of the Morong family, you even dared to kill an elder of the Morong family. You've already committed a heinous crime. Aren't you going to bow down and admit your crimes? Elder Ingyen said in a deep voice. Zhuowen sneered and said, Your Morong family is really willing to spend money. You even took out a heaven-breaking 4th tier divine artifact. Are you here to kill me? Elder Ingyen said indifferently, Ever since you killed a member of the Morong family, you're already a dead man. However, I'll give you a good suggestion. Hand over everything on you, and I'll let you die a better death. It won't be so painful. Zhuowen raised the half-moon divine flame spear and said indifferently, That'll depend on whether you have the ability or not. Looks like you're deliberately seeking death. You don't have any more chances. I'll first capture you alive and send you to the Morong family's water prison. I'll let you taste all the torture tools there. After you've tasted all the pain, I'll kill you. Elder Ingyen said coldly. As he said that, Elder Ingyen stomped his right foot and jumped out of the divine ship. He fell towards Zhuowen while holding the blood spear in his hand tightly. He was ready to unleash a terrifying attack. Zhuowen held the half-moon divine flame spear and did not dare to be negligent in the slightest. Elder Ingyen's aura was much stronger than Morong Rue's. Although there was only a difference of one small realm between the two, in the heaven-breaking realm, even a difference of one small realm was a huge difference in strength. The reason why Zhuowen was able to possess strength that far exceeded his peers was because he cultivated a powerful cultivation technique, like the primordial technique. If it were not for the immemorial primordial technique, Zhuowen's battle strength would not be much stronger than those of the same realm. Not only was Elder Ingyen stronger than Morong Rue, but he also used a heaven-breaking level 4 divine weapon and could display the full power of the heaven-breaking level 4 divine weapon. Even if Zhuowen's half-moon divine flame spear was a little higher than the blood spear, Zhuowen did not have much confidence in defeating Elder Ingyen, unless he used the power of the star weapon fragment that he had just fused with. But that was his final trump card, and he would not use it easily. Bang! Elder Ingyen's speed was extremely fast, and he arrived in front of Zhuowen in an instant. The blood spear shot out, and countless blood shadows enveloped Zhuowen's surroundings. Zhuowen only felt that he was in a foul wind and a rain of blood. It was pungent and nauseating. Break! The divine spear in Zhuowen's hand flung out like a poisonous snake, and the tip of the spear pierced through the air. Instantly, waves of flames spread out like fire snakes coiling together, dispersing the uncomfortable atmosphere created by the blood spear. Rumble! The divine spear and the blood spear collided, and the sound of metal clashing rang out. The entire ruins below exploded. Bang! 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 In just an instant, the two of them had exchanged dozens of blows, and every attack was extremely terrifying. This child really has the aura of the pinnacle of the embryonic god transformation realm, but he can actually use a heaven-breaking level 4 peak divine weapon. Could it be that his shattered godly power is so strong? The more Elder Ingyen fought, the more shocked he became. The instant he fought with Zhuowen, he sensed that Zhuowen's cultivation was only at the pinnacle of the embryonic god transformation realm. not to mention why Zhuowen had such powerful strength. Just the fact that this child could use a heaven-breaking level 4 peak divine weapon as he wished was enough to shock him. Zhuowen, on the other hand, was secretly complaining. After all, his cultivation was too low. Even if the purity of his shattered godly power was very high, it was impossible for him to use the half-moon divine flame spear for a long time. The consumption was too great. If his shattered godly power was exhausted, then he would really be finished. I can't continue to waste my energy like this with this person. I have to end this quickly. Thinking of this, Zhuowen communicated with the pattern on his palm. This pattern contained the power of the fire toad and the purple thorn, and he had already named it the purple toad. The instant Zhuowen mobilized the power of the purple toad, he grabbed the spear with both hands and fiercely threw it at Elder Ingyan. Elder Ingyan's expression changed greatly. He was obviously not prepared for Zhuowen's sudden violent attack, and for a moment he was somewhat unable to withstand it. He was beaten to the point that he was flustered and continuously retreated. Chapter 3744. Elder Ingyan's expression changed greatly. He sensed a terrifying power rapidly approaching him. When he saw the purple light clearly, he discovered that within the purple light there was actually a purple toad. The strange thing was that the toad's entire body was covered with purple spikes. Elder Ingyan did not even think as he threw the blood spear in his hand towards the toad. His intuition told him that he could not be hit by the purple toad. Otherwise, there would definitely be a huge problem. But what made Elder Ingyan dumbstruck was that after the purple toad cried out, it actually nimbly dodged his blood spear attack. Then, with a kick of its hind legs, it directly pounced towards Elder Ingyan's face. Puchi! In the instant that the purple toad smashed into Elder Ingyan's face, it immediately started rolling. The purple spikes all over its body were extremely sharp. They completely tore apart Elder Ingyan's face, causing his face to change beyond recognition. After the purple toad did all this, it immediately turned into a purple light and returned to Zhuowen's palm. Elder Ingyan threw away the blood spear and covered his face with both hands as he screamed miserably. Fresh blood flowed down his face without any regard for his life. Even though Elder Ingyan did his best to use shattered godly power to heal the injuries on his face, what made him shocked was that not only did his wounds not heal, they were even spreading out. The purple toad had fused the purple spike and the fire toad's power. Just now, Zhuowen had only used its bleeding effect. As long as one was injured by the purple toad spikes, it would be very difficult for the wound to heal. It would continue to bleed until the blood ran dry. Zhuowen took advantage of this opportunity and immediately snatched the blood spear. Then he used his movement technique and instantly flew away. As for the other people on the divine ship, they did not chase after Zhuowen. Instead, they immediately went to Elder Ingyan's side. Elder Ingyan was the strongest person in their group. Even Elder Ingyan was unable to kill Zhuowen. If they went to chase after Zhuowen, wouldn't they be throwing their lives away in vain? The old woman looked at Elder Ingyan's mangled face, and her expression changed slightly. This is the power of a star weapon fragment. Who exactly is this child? He possesses a star weapon fragment. Looking at Elder Ingyan's injuries, it should be some kind of astral weapon with bleeding characteristics. Furthermore, it is very powerful. It should be at least a fragment of a second-rank astral weapon. The expressions of the others changed greatly. Star weapon fragments had always appeared in various places of the 100 domains. Even their Morong family had some star weapon fragments, but they were all very small. Moreover, most of them were rank 1-star weapons. There was only one rank 2-star weapon fragment. Star soldiers also had their own corresponding ranks, which were divided into 10 ranks. The first level was the lowest, and the 10th level was the highest. In the 100 outer realms, the most numerous were rank 1 astral soldiers. As for the astral soldiers of the first rank and above, they started to become much rarer. Take the governor of the G province as an example. There were actually quite a few rank 1 astral soldiers, but rank 2 astral soldiers were as rare as phoenix feathers and Chelan horns. Only a large faction like the Morone clan had the resources to possess a rank 2 astral soldier, but at most they only had one. However, this mere loose cultivator in front of them not only possessed a level 4 heaven-crushing divine artifact, but also a level 2 astral weapon fragment. How could this not shock them? If they hadn't investigated Zhuowen's background, they would have even thought that this Zhuowen was a descendant of some large faction that had come here to travel. What should we do next? Everyone looked at the old woman. At this moment, the old woman had clearly become their backbone. This encirclement has failed. With our strength, it's impossible for us to be Zhuowen's match. Let's return to the Morong family first. The old woman smiled bitterly. Everyone looked at each other and sighed in their hearts. They knew that this was the only thing they could do. Even Elder Ingyen was injured to this extent and almost died. What could they do? If they chased after him, they would just be courting death. When Elder Ingyen and the others retreated, the people of the Nangong family, who were hiding in the dark, also slowly retreated. They had witnessed the battle between Zhuowen and Elder Ingyen. Naturally, they could also see that other than the level 4 heaven-crushing divine artifact, Zhuowen actually had a treasure that was suspected to be a rank 2-star weapon. Even Elder Ingyen and the others had returned in defeat, let alone them. Therefore, they immediately returned and planned to report this matter to the Nangong family's patriarch. After Zhuowen had left for some distance, he took out another divine ship from his spirit ring and rushed towards the Ascension sect's direction without stopping. He understood that his action of heavily injuring Elder Ingyen should have completely intimidated the people of the Morong family. They would not easily chase after him. However, he knew that just in case, he had to be more cautious. Moreover, he had used the half-moon divine fire spear and the purple toad consecutively. There was not much broken god power left in his body. He had to adjust his condition. This purple toad's power is really strong. If I were to unleash its full power, Elder Ingyen would definitely be dead. Zhuowen felt that it was a pity because he had used the half-moon divine fire spear. He did not have much broken god power left in his body. Therefore, he was unable to unleash the full power of the purple toad. However, he was very satisfied with the power of the purple toad. Its power was much stronger than the purple thorn and the fire toad. In reality, what Zhuowen did not know was that the purple thorn and the fire toad were merely astral weapon fragments. However, when he merged the two together, the two had undergone a qualitative leap. The fused purple toad had also leveled up to become a rank 2 astral weapon. However, how did the Morong family find out my exact location? Zhuowen's face suddenly turned gloomy. Although he had asked Fan Shuang and the rest to spread the news that he was going to the Ascension sect, he did not follow a fixed path. Even if the Morong family knew that he was going to the Ascension sect, it was impossible for them to know which path he was going to take beforehand. However, the people led by Elder Ingyen had not only set up an ambush in advance, but they had also used the God Crasher. If it were not for his quick reaction, he might have been severely injured by the God Crasher. Zhuowen recalled the old lady next to Elder Ingyen. He narrowed his eyes and mumbled to himself, could it be that the old lady is a spirit master of speech? Zhuowen knew that there was a special profession called Spirit Master of Speech in the 100 territories. Spirit Masters of Speech were able to predict certain things. For example, They could sense evil spirits in the dark and determine the location of evil spirits in advance, as well as the method to subdue evil spirits. At the same time, they could also predict the approximate location of the person they were looking for. Obviously, the Morong family must have hired a very powerful spirit master of speech. That was why they could accurately predict his route and set up an ambush in advance. I think the Morong family won't dare to come after me anymore. By the time they return to the Morong family and gather people to surround me, I'll have already returned to the Ascension sect. Zhuowen thought about it for a while and felt relieved. He had defeated Elder Ingyen. The Morong family would definitely not come after him to their deaths. Elder Ingyen must be one of the most powerful people in the Morong family. Obviously, they did not expect Elder Ingyen to fail. Now that an accident had occurred, the Morong family would definitely need time to react. This time would be enough for Zhuowen to arrive at the Ascension sect. As long as he entered the Ascension sect, the Morong family would not dare to do anything to him. Zhuowen took out the token that Elder Yuchi had given him. After thinking about it, for a while, he put it away again. He did not plan to use Elder Yuchi's token. He had exposed too many things. The Morong family knew about his secret. If he joined the Ascension sect openly, the Morong family would reveal all of his secrets. There was no guarantee that the Ascension sect's higher-ups would not be tempted by his secrets. Chapter 3745. The Ascension sect was built on the Sky Dragon mountain range that stretched for tens of thousands of miles. There were many buildings built on the mountain range. From afar, the entire mountain range was filled with pavilions and towers. It was like a mysterious and unfathomable mountain of immortals. Today, the mountain gate of the Ascension sect was bustling with noise and excitement. Many young cultivators had gathered. They were all young cultivators from all over the Ji prefecture. They had come to participate in the test and enter the Ascension sect. A man and a woman, wearing the Ascension sect's insignia, stood in front of the mountain gate of the Ascension sect. A palm-sized transparent pearl was suspended in front of the man and woman. There was a whirlpool inside the pearl that was slowly rotating. They are senior brother Zhou Ji and senior sister Ni Kai. They are the top 10 experts among the Ascension sect's outer sect disciples. I didn't expect that the entrance test would be conducted by the two of them. Many young cultivators in front of the mountain gate exclaimed softly when they saw the man and woman. They had obviously recognized the two of them. Everyone, thank you for choosing our Ascension sect. Today's entrance test is very simple. You only need to touch the test pearl in front of me. As long as you can make the test pearl react, it means that your Tao root has passed and you can become an outer sect disciple of the Ascension sect. If you can make the test pearl emit a strong phenomenon, you can directly become an inner sect disciple. Everything depends on the aptitude of your Tao root. Now, let the test begin. Everyone, line up one by one. Zhou Ji placed the test pearl in front of them. Then, the young cultivators in front of the mountain gate all quieted down and stepped forward to take the test. Fail. Fail. After more than 10 people stepped forward and touched the test pearl, they couldn't make the test pearl react at all. They were directly disqualified. These young cultivators who failed all lowered their heads. Their Tao root aptitudes were truly too weak. They couldn't even make the test pearl react. Brothers who failed, don't worry. After this round of test, there will be a second round. As long as any of you can pass the second round, you can also enter the Ascension sect and become an outer sect disciple. Zhou Ji spoke again, and it reignited the hope of those people who failed. Zhuowen mixed in with the group and looked at the test pearl with a trace of a bitter smile on the corner of his mouth. He knew that he didn't have a Tao root at all. He didn't even need to consider the first round of test. Pass. A sweet-looking young woman placed her palm on the testing bead. Immediately, the whirlpool within the testing bead spun much faster. Zhou Ji smiled and looked at the young woman in a rather friendly manner. The young woman was stunned for a moment before she clenched her fists in excitement. Junior sister, you are standing behind us. Congratulations, you are now an outer disciple of the Heaven's Emergence sect. Anikai, who was originally cold beside Zhou Ji, revealed a smile for the first time as she greeted the young woman. The young woman hurried to Anikai's side, her face flushed red. Hello, brother. My name is Tang Hongmiao. I'm very happy to stand behind you. What's your name? Zhuowen turned around and saw a slightly plump young man smiling at Zhuo when in a friendly manner. My name is Zhuowen Yinxue. Zhuowen said calmly. Since he planned to enter the Ascension sect with a different identity, he naturally didn't plan to use his real name. Moreover, he also changed his appearance slightly. Oh, so it's Brother Yinxue. I've heard so much about you. We will soon be fellow disciples of the same sect. Please give me your guidance in the future. Also, my favorite thing is to make friends. In the future, we will be friends everywhere. That's my dream, Tang Hongmiao said with a smile. After that, Tang Hongmiao shook hands with Zhuowen. Then, he walked past Zhuowen and said to the young cultivator in front of Zhuowen, Hello, brother. My name is Tang Hongmiao. I'm very happy to stand behind you. What's your name? Zhuowen looked at the confused face of the young man in front of him and was speechless. What was this fatty doing? Was this considered making friends? After greeting all the young cultivators in the group, Tang Hongmiao returned to Zhuo Wen's side and gave Zhuowen an extremely bright smile. Brother Zhuo, am I very cool? Did my social skills amaze you? Tang Hongmiao revealed his white teeth and said in an intoxicated manner. Zhuowen was speechless. Brother Hongmiao is indeed a member of the Tang family. You have such a wide range of connections. These days, it's all thanks to Brother Hongmiao for helping us and even providing us with cultivation resources. A rather steady, young man walked over slowly. Beside him was a man and a woman. The man's gaze was somewhat gloomy. The woman's appearance was not bad. There was a trace of charm between her eyebrows. When Tang Hongmiao saw the woman, his eyes revealed an infatuated expression. Obviously, he was interested in this woman. Brother Lu, you are too polite. I should be the one thanking you. Along the way, you have shared a lot of cultivation experiences with me. Moreover, with your Tao root, entering the Ascension sect will be a piece of cake. Unlike me, my Tao root is not that good. Tang Hongmiao said with a slightly discouraged tone. The steady young man patted Tang Hongmiao's shoulder and said with a smile, Hongmiao, don't be discouraged. Your Tao root is actually quite good. I think you will definitely have no problem becoming an outer sect disciple. Moreover, I heard that if you can become an inner sect disciple in this test, then you will have a recommendation quota. If I can directly become an inner sect disciple, I will absolutely recommend you to enter the Ascension sect. After all, it was you who helped the three of us along the way. Tang Hongmiao's face flushed red, and he said excitedly, Brother Lu, you are indeed loyal. With Brother Lu's Tao root, you will definitely become an inner sect disciple. The corners of the steady young man's mouth curled up slightly. Even though he said modest words, the arrogance on his face became even denser. Zhuowen silently listened to the conversation of Tang Hongmiao and the others, but he took another glance at the steady young man. He could sense that this young man's Tao root was indeed not bad. Entering the Ascension sect should be completely no problem. Soon, it was Zhuowen's turn to be tested. Zhuowen went forward and placed his hand on the testing pearl. After that, the pearl did not have any reaction at all. Sure enough, no Tao root. Zhuowen was speechless in his heart. He left the testing pearl and obediently went to the side where he failed. He knew that he could only enter the Ascension sect through the second round. He could not hope for the first round. Ha ha! No reaction at all. This fellow either has no Tao root or his Tao root is trash. He is simply a piece of trash. This kind of fellow actually has the face to participate in the Ascension sex test. I don't know where his courage comes from. The steady young man and the others were not far behind Zhuowen. The young woman following behind the young man saw Zhuowen's performance and sneered with ridicule. "Furong, you are too rude," the steady young man said in a low voice. Furong curled her lips and did not speak. Instead, it was this steady young man who glanced indifferently at Zhuowen and did not have the intention of asking Furong to apologize. Zhuowen glanced indifferently at these three people and did not say anything, but instead stood to the side. "Little sister Furong, your words were indeed rude earlier. There is still the second round. I believe that Brother Zhuo will surely be able to pass the second round." Tang Hongmiao spoke for Zhuowen instead. Chapter 3746. Hongmiao, Furong has always been like this. She speaks without thinking. Don't take it to heart. The steady young man said indifferently. Tang Hongmiao smiled and rubbed his head. How could that be? What kind of friendship do we have? Why would I take such a trivial matter to heart? Then hurry up and take the test, the steady youth said indifferently. Tang Hongmiao nodded. Full of hope, he placed his right hand on the test bead. Then there was a slight reaction from the test bead, but it soon stopped. Zhou Ji looked at the test bead and shook his head. Failed. Tang Hongmiao's face turned pale, and his eyes were filled with disappointment. He didn't expect that he would fail. Tang Hongmiao, you are indeed trash as well. Furong sneered. Tang Hongmiao's expression flickered, and his face flushed red. He looked at the steady-looking young man, and was about to say something when the young man interrupted him. Hongmiao, you're done with the test. You can leave now. I still have to take the test. Don't block my way. As he spoke, the steady young man pushed Tang Hongmiao to the side. Then, he excitedly placed his hand on the test bead. Immediately, the testing bead emitted a blazing light, and the vortex inside the bead started to spin rapidly. This is a mid-grade ancestral Tao root. This person is not bad. Zhou Ji and Nai Kai shuddered as they looked at the steady young man in excitement. Junior brother, what's your name? Zhou Ji asked excitedly. Reporting to senior brother, my name is Lu Yongwang. The steady youth smiled. Good. You possess a high-grade ancestral Tao root, so you're qualified to directly become an inner court disciple. I truly never expected that I would be able to encounter a genius with a high-grade ancestral Tao root. Zhou Ji spoke with an excited expression. Nai Kai even pulled Lu Yong to her side and asked about his well-being with great enthusiasm. After that, the man and woman who had followed Lu Yong also took the test. They basically all possessed low-grade Tao roots, and all of them passed. As expected of Brother Lu, it's actually a high-grade ancestral Tao root, and I'll be able to become an inner court disciple right away. As a friend, I can also benefit from it. He will definitely recommend me to enter the Ascension sect. Tang Hongmiao said excitedly. Zhuowen was a little speechless as he glanced at Tang Hongmiao beside him. This guy is too slow. From the attitude of Furong and Lu Yongwang just now, it could be seen that the three of them did not treat Tang Hongmiao as a friend at all. Zhuowen knew that Lu Yong would never waste a spot on Tang Hongmiao. Brother Tang, I think you should prepare for the second round. That Lu Yong shouldn't have used the quota on you, Zhuowen said. Tang Hongmiao was stunned. He shook his head and said to Zhuowen with a smile, Brother Zhuo, I'm very good at judging people. Brother Lu is a responsible and loyal person. He won't break his promise to me." As he spoke, Tang Hongmiao waved his hand at Lu Yong and the other two and said loudly, "Big brother Lu, little sister Furong, Wei Zi, congratulations on successfully entering the Ascension sect. Also, brother Lu, you also want to become an inner court disciple. Do you still remember that you promised me to recommend me to enter the Ascension sect?" Lu Yongwang glanced at Tang Hongmiao indifferently and said, "Tang Hongmiao, turns out that you approached me because of this objective. I've really misjudged you. In the past, I saw clearly what kind of person you were. First, I saw clearly that it was impossible for me to waste a spot on a snobbish person like you." As he spoke, Lu Yongwang no longer paid attention to Tang Hongmiao, and he started chatting happily with Ni Kai instead. Furong and Wei Zi glanced at Tang Hongmiao with contempt, and they both pretended not to see Tang Hongmiao. Tang Hongmiao's pupils constricted, and his face went ghastly pale. He'd already understood. Lu Yongwang had only been using him all along the way, and to think that he'd always distributed his cultivation resources to the three of them. So it turned out that they didn't treat him as a friend at all. Zhuowen glanced at the dejected Tang Hongmiao, shook his head, and said, "Brother Tang, making friends isn't a one-sided effort, and it should be mutual effort. A true friend wouldn't ask blindly, and they'll give in every possible way to you and give their hearts out. Also, having more friends isn't better, but whether it's sincere or not." Zhuowen knew that Tang Hongmiao had already entered the wrong path when making friends, and that was why he suffered a great loss this time. Tang Hongmiao stared blankly at Zhuowen, and he actually started crying. Brother Zhua, thank you for comforting me. Also, you're right, I've entered the wrong path when making friends. It's my mistake. In the future, you'll be my true friend." As Tang Hongmiao cried, he wanted to go over and hug Zhuowen, but Zhuowen dodged. Zhuowen held his forehead speechlessly. He felt that Tang Hongmiao definitely had a screw loose in his head. Brother Zhua, this talisman is like an iron bastion, and it can greatly increase your defensive power. It'll be of great help to you in passing the second round. Also, thank you very much." Tang Hongmiao seriously handed a talisman to Zhuowen and said with a smile, "What about you?" Zhuowen originally wanted to refuse, but Tang Hongmiao's expression was too serious, and he couldn't refuse. "I have two, so don't worry." Tang Hongmiao nodded. "Thank you." Zhuowen patted Tang Hongmiao's shoulder, and an obscure sword intent entered Tang Hongmiao's body. This was the power of the Divine Soul Sword intent, and it could help Tang Hongmiao pass the second round. The first round of the test was completed, and only a dozen people passed. Compared to a team of thousands, this ratio was indeed very small. Ni Kai had already brought the qualified people into the mountain gate, leaving only Zhou Ji in front of the mountain gate, looking at the people who didn't pass. "Next, I'll arrange the second round for you. As long as you can pass the second round, you can also enter the Ascension sect. However, the second round is very dangerous, and it's life-threatening. If anyone wants to withdraw, now is your last chance." Zhou Ji's gaze was solemn. When he said this, hundreds of people in the team quietly withdrew. Zhou Ji re-examined the remaining people and continued, "Very good, those of you who stayed. Your courage is commendable." Suddenly, Zhou Ji pointed to a large mountain to the side and said, "At the foot of this mountain, there's a golem cave. It's filled with golems. If you can walk out of the golem cave, then you'll pass the second round. It's very simple." However, the golems in the golem cave are all at the early stage of the embryonic divine transformation realm, and there are many of them. Even those at the middle and late stage of the embryonic divine transformation realm will find it difficult to pass through the golem cave unscathed. If you're not careful, you might die in there. You have to think carefully. At this time, another group of people withdrew. The golem cave was too risky, and they weren't willing to take the risk. Soon, there were only 700 to 800 people left, and Tang Hongmiao was standing beside Zhuowen. Let's begin. You all enter the golem cave, and I'll go to the other side. Those who can reach there are qualified. After Zhou Ji finished speaking, he took out a green bamboo raft and flew into the air, heading to the other side of the mountain to wait. After Zhou Ji left, the remaining people all moved, rushing toward the golem cave. Brother Zhou, if you believe me, then follow behind me. I can bring you out of the golem cave safely. Zhuowen suddenly said. Tang Hongmiao was stunned, then looked at Zhuowen seriously and nodded. Brother Zhua, I believe you. Chapter 3747. The Stone Man Cave was extremely dark, and the light inside was extremely dim. One could only see a few meters ahead of them. When Zhuowen led Tang Hongmiao into the Stone Man Cave, they immediately heard the sound of rocks colliding with each other, as well as shrill screams. Tang Hongmiao's expression changed slightly. His cultivation was a bit weak. At most, he was around the 4th blight. Among the participating teams, he could only be considered one of the weakest. As soon as he entered the Stone Man Cave, he sensed that many people had already died. Moreover, they were all participants stronger than him. How could he not be alarmed and terrified? Brother Tang, remember to follow me closely. I might be faster. After saying this, Zhuowen rushed forward, not at all afraid of the sudden appearance of a terrifying stone man. Tang Hongmiao's scalp went numb, but he didn't cower. Instead, he followed closely behind Zhuowen. In any case, he still had the impenetrable defense talisman on him. It was enough to protect his life. Soon, the two of them encountered the first stone man. This stone man's body was made of stone, and its eyes emitted a scarlet light. Boom! When the stone man discovered Zhuowen and Tang Hongmiao, it immediately threw out a punch. The wind from the punch whistled through the air, and the air was filled with endless explosions. This stone man is so strong. It's actually at the divine fetus transformation realm. We can't fight it at all. Brother Zhua, quickly dodge. Tang Hongmiao shouted, but to Tang Hongmiao's surprise, Zhuowen didn't dodge. Instead, he charged straight at the stone man. It's over. Tang Hongmiao's face turned deathly pale. Boom! Zhuowen casually threw out a punch which met the stone man's fist. Then the stone man stopped and shattered into countless pieces. What? He destroyed a stone man with one punch? Tang Hongmiao was dumbfounded. His face was filled with disbelief. But when he saw Zhuowen continue to charge forward without saying anything, he suppressed the shock in his heart and quickly followed behind Zhuowen. Tang Hongmiao wasn't a fool. He already knew that this man named Zhuowen was definitely not an ordinary person. At the very least, this person's strength was definitely the strongest among this batch of people. Following that, Tang Hongmiao's entire body went numb. Everywhere Zhuowen passed by, what was left behind were all remains of stone men. About a quarter of an hour later, they saw the exit. At the exit of the golem cave, Zhou Ji crossed his arms and leaned against a rock. I'm afraid none of these unqualified fellows will be able to pass the golem cave. After all, the golem cave is indeed too difficult for them. Zhou Ji mumbled, but soon Zhou Ji narrowed his eyes. He discovered that two figures had appeared at the exit. It has only been 15 minutes, and someone has already cleared the trial, and there are two of them. Zhou Ji looked at Zhuowen and Tang Hongmiao in disbelief. How did you two get out? Or is it that you guys didn't enter the Stoneman Cave at all, but circled around from outside the Stoneman Cave? Zhou Ji said solemnly, we did come out of the Golem Cave. Didn't you see it with your own eyes? Why are you denying it now? Zhuowen countered with a question. Zhou Ji frowned. He looked deeply at Zhuowen and said, "This golem cave is filled with stone men at the divine fetus transformation realm. Even if it was me, it would be impossible for me to come out in 15 minutes. But you guys actually came out so quickly. That's impossible." Zhuowen said calmly, "You can't do it, but that doesn't mean I can't." Zhou Ji's eyes narrowed dangerously. He looked coldly at Zhuowen and grinned. "You mean to say that I, one of the top 10 outer sect disciples, can't even compare to a piece of trash like you who didn't even pass the aptitude test?" Tang Hongmiao sensed that the atmosphere was not right and hurriedly said, "Senior brother Zhou Ji, we did come out of the golem cave. Also, Brother Zhuo didn't mean to offend you. He's just like that. He's a bit blunt. Don't take it to heart." "Shut up, you piece of trash. You too must have circled around the mountain to come here. Don't even think about entering the Ascension sect today. Scram." Zhou Ji said coldly. Tang Hongmiao's expression changed slightly. He didn't expect things to develop to this point. They had finally passed through the golem cave, and now they were going to be driven out of the Ascension sect. Wouldn't it be embarrassing for him to return to the Tang family? "You don't believe that we can pass through the golem cave because you think we're not strong enough. If I prove my strength, then you have to believe it even if you don't believe it," Zhuowen said calmly. "Oh, prove your strength? How do you want to prove it?" Zhou Ji said mockingly. "I'll defeat you in one move. That'll prove my strength," Zhuowen said calmly. Tang Hongmiao's heart was in his throat. How could this brother Zhuo speak like that? He had completely offended Zhou Ji. "Defeat me in one move." Zhou Ji was stunned. Then he looked up to the sky and laughed. He continued, "What a joke. A piece of trash like you actually dares to speak such arrogant words. My cultivation is already at the peak of the divine fetus transformation realm, and I'm one of the top outer sect disciples. You actually talk big and want to defeat me in one move. What a joke. But that's fine too. I haven't met such an arrogant newcomer in a long time. Today I'll let you experience my strength and let you know how big the gap between us is." As he spoke, Zhou Ji took a step forward. His aura exploded, and he appeared in front of Zhuowen in the blink of an eye. He threw a punch at Zhuowen's face. "AI, Brother Zhuo, why are you so impulsive? You actually contradicted Senior Brother Zhou Ji. Senior Brother Zhou Ji is much stronger than the golem cave." Tang Hongmiao sighed inwardly. Crack. The sound of bones cracking could be heard. Tang Hongmiao was shocked to find that Zhou Ji's fist was easily caught in Zhuowen's hand. Then, with a twist, Zhou Ji's arm was directly twisted. Zhou Ji held his right hand and rolled on the ground, screaming in pain. "The gap between you and me is indeed very obvious. You're called Zhou Ji, right? I'm warning you now. If you dare to provoke me again, I'll really kill you." Zhuowen looked coldly at Zhou Ji, and the killing intent in his eyes was not concealed at all. Zhou Ji was trembling in fear. Who the hell is this guy? How can he be so strong? He's on a completely different level from me. I won't dare to do it again. Zhou Ji endured the pain and threw 2 jade tokens to Zhuowen and Tang Hongmiao. He said, "These are your identity tokens. From today onward, the 2 of you are outer sect disciples of the Ascension sect." Zhuowen took the jade tokens and lifted Zhou Ji up. He said indifferently, "Lead the way for us. Tell us where we live in the sect, as well as some specific information about the sect. If you can satisfy me, I'll only cut off your arm. Of course, you'd better not say anything about me. Otherwise, you'll die very quickly." Zhou Ji's entire body trembled, and he hurriedly nodded. After that, he obediently led the way for Zhuowen and Tang Hongmiao. As for the Golem Cave, no one cared about it anymore, because after Zhuowen left the Golem Cave, he knew that the remaining people who had entered the Golem Cave had basically all died. So, there was no need for Zhou Ji to continue waiting. This world was just so cruel. If your strength was insufficient, then even if you were undergoing the entrance test, you would still die. If you wanted to survive in this world and live well, then you had to become even stronger. Chapter 3748. Give me your communication jade talisman. After all, I just entered the sect. If I need to know more, I'll look for you directly. Zhuowen said indifferently. Zhou Ji smiled bitterly and obediently handed his communication jade talisman to Zhuowen. This is a healing elixir. Take it yourself. It should be quite beneficial for your injuries. Zhuowen casually tossed a divine elixir to Zhou Ji. This was the 7 Lives Qi Recovery Elixir. It was a heaven-breaking level 1 healing elixir that Zhuowen created when he was in the lower realm. He had refined quite a number of them back then, so casually taking one out was nothing to him. Heaven-breaking level 1 healing elixir. Zhou Ji's pupils constricted. He could tell that Zhuowen gave him a heaven-breaking level 1 elixir. This level of elixir was only available to inner sect disciples in the Ascension sect. Although he was one of the top 10 outer sect disciples, he still needed to pay a huge price to exchange for this level of elixir. However, Zhuowen casually gave it to him. It could be seen how wealthy this person was. In addition to Zhuowen's powerful strength, Zhou Ji's gaze became much more respectful. You may leave. If there's anything, I'll use the communication jade talisman to contact you. Zhuowen said indifferently. Zhou Ji left respectfully. After Zhuowen and Tang Hongmiao settled down, Zhuowen went straight to the Divine Abilities Pavilion. The Divine Abilities Pavilion was one of the most important places in the Ascension sect. It contained all the divine abilities that had been collected since the Ascension sect was founded. With Zhuowen's current strength, he was at the peak even in the Ascension sect. However, Zhuowen knew that his strength mainly came from the half-moon divine fire spear and the purple toad. On the other hand, his own strength was not that strong. In addition, he had never learned any divine abilities systematically. Therefore, he joined the Ascension sect to learn more things systematically. Moreover, there were many books and knowledge about alchemy and array Dao in the Ascension sect. He could use this period of time in the Ascension sect to improve his alchemy and array Dao again. Zhou Ji had previously introduced to him that the Mystical Abilities Pavilion had a total of 5 levels. Outer sect disciples only had the right to enter the first level. Inner disciples could enter the second floor, while core disciples could enter the 3rd floor. As for the 4th floor, only the elders of the Ascension School could enter it. As for the 5th floor, it was the most secretive floor. It was said that only the Ascension School's master could enter it. There were quite a number of disciples coming in and out of the Magical Abilities Pavilion. Zhuowen was wearing the uniform of the Ascension School. He blended into the crowd and looked ordinary. No one noticed him. At the front desk of the Mystique Pavilion, a 30-year-old woman with an extremely hot figure sat silently. From the conversations of the people around her, he could tell that this woman was the manager of the Mystique Pavilion. Her name was Lian Yu. It was said that her temper was as fiery as her figure. An outer disciple who just entered the sect. Lian Yu took Zhuowen's identity jade token and casually scanned it a few times. Then, she threw the jade token back to Zhuowen. You can only choose a divine ability from the first level, and you can only bring out one divine ability. The time limit is 1 month. If you don't return it within a month, you're dead meat. Lian Yu said indifferently. Zhuowen kept the identity jade token and said indifferently, Elder Lian Yu, I would like to ask if there's any way for an outer disciple to enter the higher levels of the magical abilities pavilion. Lian Yu squinted her eyes slowly, revealing a hint of danger. You're just a piece of trash who just entered the sect. You want to enter the higher levels? Are you dreaming? Lian Yu sneered. Zhuowen's eyes became sharp like an unsheathed sword. He said in a deep voice, Elder Lian Yu, I'm asking you if there's a way. You only need to answer yes or no. There's no need to talk so much nonsense. Elder Lian Yu's delicate body trembled. She actually felt a chill from the bottom of her heart. It had been a long time since she felt this way. There is, Elder Lian Yu replied with a gloomy face. What's the way? Zhuowen's eyes lit up. In the north of the Ascension sect, there's a sinkhole. There's a total of 81 sinkholes in it. Each sinkhole is filled with danger. Since you're an outer disciple, if you can pass through the first 10 sinkholes, you'll have the right to enter the next level. In other words, if you want to enter the second level, you must pass through the first 10 sinkholes. You have to pass through the first 10 sinkholes and obtain a token to enter the second level of the Divine Abilities Pavilion. Elder Lian Yu sneered. The sinkhole was the most terrifying training ground in the Ascension sect. Every year, countless disciples of the Ascension sect would enter the training ground. However, only a small number of them could survive. Moreover, to challenge the sinkhole, one must at least have the strength of an inner disciple. If an outer disciple were to challenge the sinkhole, it would be tantamount to suicide. In Elder Lian Yu's opinion, this lad would not dare to challenge the sinkhole. He was just pretending in front of her. Thank you, Elder Lian Yu. After I leave the Magical Abilities Pavilion, I'll naturally challenge the sinkhole. Zhuowen cupped his hands at Elder Lian Yu and strode into the first level of the Magical Abilities Pavilion. In the 100 outer regions, the magical abilities were divided into level 1 to level 10. In the first level of the Magical Abilities Pavilion, most of the magical abilities were level 1. He heard that the magical abilities on the 5th level of the Magical Abilities Pavilion were extremely powerful level 5 magical abilities. Zhuowen had roughly estimated that the power of the 3 divine abilities that he had created was probably only between the first and second level. Zhuowen's purpose in the Magical Abilities Pavilion was naturally to learn the strongest magical abilities of the Ascension sect. Those level 1 and level 2 magical abilities were of little value to him. The reason why he wanted to browse the first level of the Magical Abilities Pavilion was mainly to increase his knowledge. Elder Lian Yu glanced at Zhuowen and sneered in her heart. She felt that Zhuowen was simply boasting. The first floor of the Mystical Abilities Pavilion was abnormally spacious. It was densely packed with rows of bookshelves, and all of them were rank 1 mystical abilities. Thunderbolt Sword Art, Green Howl Halberd Art, Floating Light Shadow. These books were like ancient books with the names of the magical abilities written on the cover. Of course, they were only the most basic of the magical abilities. Zhuowen casually opened the Thunderbolt Sword Art and briefly browsed through it. He was instantly stunned. The moment he opened the Thunderbolt Sword Art, the Tai Word Stone hidden in the depths of his divine soul actually reacted. Then, Zhuowen realized that the Tai Word Stone was emitting a purple light and appeared in his divine soul. It actually projected a blurry figure in his divine soul. The figure's facial features were unclear, and it was holding an equally blurry divine sword. Under Zhuowen's incredulous gaze, the blurry figure began to dance with the divine sword. The sound of the sword was like rolling thunder. Streaks of lightning energy exploded from the shadows of the sword. The power was unparalleled. This is the Thunderbolt Sword Art. Zhuowen's eyes revealed a look of enlightenment. As the blurry figure continued to dance with the divine sword, it was as if he was personally in the scene. All the essentials of the Thunderbolt Sword Art were completely comprehended at this moment. This Tai word stone actually has such a function? Zhuan was overjoyed. This was his first time coming into contact with the magical abilities of the 100 domains outside the realm. However, it had given him great benefits. The Tai word stone could actually allow him to instantly comprehend the essentials of the magical abilities. This function was simply too heaven-defying. What's going on? Zhuan's eyes narrowed. Another blurry figure appeared in his divine soul.